so much to get going.
Breakfast at Pascal's.
Pascal's, write that down.
Ball guys.
Should we let her buck and you guys log in as we go? Okay. We are ready. Good morning, everybody. This is a special meeting of the San Miguel County Commissioners. Today is Wednesday, July 22nd. It is 9:31 in the morning. Present are all three commissioners and a number of staff and a few citizens on the Zoom. Welcome, everybody. We will open our meeting with a moment of silence for grounding and gratitude. Thank you, everyone. We are lucky to be here. Commissioners, how does our agenda look for you today? Any changes?
For me.
Excellent. We will proceed to public comment for items not on the agenda. And I do not see any hands up in the Zoom, but if you are struggling with that, it's the little heart icon in the very bottom in the middle. It says react. There are no reactions. We will close that portion of the agenda and move on to the consent agenda. Do you have any questions or concerns? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
I as well. We got some momentum. Here we go into item 7A. Consideration of the appointment to the Board of Trustees for the Wilkinson Public Library to an unexpired term until December 31st. And Peggy is with us. Good morning. We have the applicant's information in our packet and we got the board recommendation. Would you like to come up and tell us more? What else do we need to know?
For this round, we had 4 very qualified, wonderful applicants, so it was a tough choice. But we, as the Board of Trustees, would like to recommend that Sandra Merrill be the appointment, based on her experience with budgeting. Also, but from the information I had left for me from the previous director,
Yeah.
the process was that we would let the county commissioners know, of course, that we had the vacancy and put up the job posting and then let and our staff, of course, and they did a lot to help recruit and recommend some people. So that's how the word got out. They sent their letters of interest to me as well as the commissioners. And then we just had them come to a board meeting to sort of answer questions and tell us about themselves. And so that's what we did last week. And then we did an executive session to discuss it and choose one of the four since we had more than one applicant this time. So that was great. So, yeah.
Okay, you.
I was only gonna add that it's per state law. That in Colorado, that county commissioners appoint library board trustees. You don't appoint them for all local taxing districts, obviously. But that was per state statute.
But, and does the statute also say that we do so at the recommendation of the library board?
No,
Yeah, okay.
And I think to just add a little bit more to this, to your point, Commissioner Brown, we've got a lot of different boards and commissions.
Yes.
Some of them have this statutory nexus, some of them do not.
Right.
Some of them are creatures just created by resolution in the past, so on and so forth. So we don't have a one kind of prescriptive path to appointment for any one of these. I think generally we as a county and Carmen is really good at opening the window, receiving applications. And in this case, we kind of had a little side quest where it went to the library board for their consideration and recommendation. And we know sometimes we get recommendations of members from the boards themselves.
Yeah.
But I think those are all still discretionary of this board. Because you all are the ultimate decision makers in these appointments as they come. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And I mean, that process seems very prudent, considering that the Board of Trustees of the library has a very close connection and understanding everything, the budget, all of the policies, and have the closest touch to the library. What was provided in our packet was not all of the information around all of the candidates. But we see the recommendation and I'm prepared to stand by that recommendation.
Make that motion.
All right, I move to appoint Sandra Merrill to the Board of Trustees for the Wilkinson Public Library to an unexpired term.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you very much for coming to join us, Peggy.
Thank you so much. This was a kind of a fun process. We were sad to see Kelsey go, but we're very happy to see him on the board. So I will let everybody know.
Nice to
Thank
see
you. Nice to see
I
you
think
too.
it says a lot about the library too, that you had 4 good candidates.
Mhm.
It's really,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was super happy about that.
thanks.
Great. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Next, we are going to item 7B, and we will have an update with our building department. Matt Gonzalez, our official, is with us. Good morning, Matt. Pulling up his presentation. Matt, I overheard that Shauna Mozingo will be
She is
joining us.
She
Did
should
you hear
be-
that on Zoom?
waiting and ready to go.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you, commissioners. As you mentioned, we do have a special guest, Ms. Shauna Mozingo, with us today. A little later on, there will be a spot where Shauna is available to provide any sort of like technical understanding assistance if we need it regarding the code. She is a super code expert and a super awesome person to work with. So we're grateful for her presence here as a part of the CEO grant that we are participating in with some other regional partners. So what I want today is just to give you another kind of quick update on the process of our code adoption and how it's going. Remind you of some timelines and some whys, and touch briefly on the joint work session that we had with our County Planning Commission and the Board of Review, and then kind of end with another slide of what are our next steps going forward. And so we'll get into it. So just as a reminder to you all and anyone else that's listening or interested as a member of the public, we are currently on the 2018 International Code cycle. We're planning to move to the 2024 International Code cycle, and that would include the adoption of the Low Energy and Carbon Code in lieu of the International Code's International Energy Conservation Code. Generally, we've all kind of regionally committed to 6-year code, intervals. So we skip a code cycle and try to. So we're not adopting new code every 3 years, but we are every 6 or so years adopting new code so that we're modernizing our code standards and taking advantage of the whenever the code is changed in a positive way. Your goals as commissioners are to do what you can to help improve climate resiliency and environmental stewardship, and also providing good public services. And so this, again, modernizing our codes is something that you all would like to do in achieving your goals as commissioners. So, and then in reference to the Low Energy and Carbon Code, as a reminder, this is triggered by now statutory requirements in the Colorado Revised Statutes passed by legislation. So we're now past July 1st, 2026. So if we amend our code in any way, shape, or form, we are now obligated to adopt the Model Low Energy and Carbon Code that's been given to us by the state of Colorado through the Energy Code Board. And then also, as I referenced before, we are, as a part of that, an offshoot to that, we are taking advantage of some grant funds that have been made available through committing to adopt the Colorado Model Low Energy and Carbon Code. I'm just going to start calling that the LECC, by the way. So here's a recap of our adoption schedule and some things that we have done and will be doing. This past June 10th, we had the joint work session with the Planning Commission and the Board of Review. Shauna was the presenter for that and kind of the host of the Q&A session we had. That went pretty well. I was pleased with the conversation that we were able to have in a kind of relaxed way. Here we are today, giving you an update of that meeting. Next month, we will have the code resolution with the amendments prepared to be put before the County Planning Commission for their recommendation to you all. And then in September, we'll be back here again with the same code resolution and amendments for your approval and adoption. And that would all be set to go into effect and be enforced by fall of next year, 2027. Okay, so our meeting on June 10th, our joint work session was presented by Shauna. Shauna works with Noresco, but she's a code expert and has worked for other jurisdictions in the state of Colorado and has consulted many a jurisdiction, and so she's a good asset for us. She's brought to us, again, thanks to the grant that we're participating in from the State Energy Office. So she's here today. In the next few slides or next few minutes, if any questions come up about code in general, but I would say specifically the Low Energy and Carbon Code, feel free to shoot those. If you have a really nitty-gritty question, Shauna probably has a really great nitty-gritty answer for you. So in her presentation, she did give us a great overview of what the low energy and carbon code is, the LECC, and what it is specifically compared to the already existing international energy conservation code. So we learned from Shauna that some of the misunderstandings about those two codes, and then again, we had a pretty open kind of Q&A session towards the end. So I have a typo there. I meant on the second bullet point. I didn't finish my thought there apparently, but so what, again, some general take homes from the presentation we had were that the LECC is based off of the 2024 International Energy Conservation Code. So the code board that was put together by the state and legislation took that code as a takeoff and made alterations to it. And what I was going to say in the second bullet point was the LECC is written to increase flexibility and provide options to builders for compliance, and while not relaxing the requirements, while not giving up on the energy saving measures, but providing more flexibility generally throughout the code, more options. Some of the general concerns that we heard in that meeting were what will our definition of a substantial or major renovation be under the code? So in other words, when would someone be triggered to retrofit their project with the new energy code provisions? Some people expressed that while we are moving forward with the adoption of the low energy and carbon code, our regional next door neighbors here, Telluride and the town of Mountain Village at this time are not. The town of Telluride is on the 2024 code cycle with the International Energy Code adopted, that version. The town of Mountain Village is currently on the 2024 code cycle, but they are using the 2021 energy code. So we will be all three have different code cycles. If we choose to do nothing instead of adopt a new code, if we stick with the 2018, we'll be bound to, by law, incorporate the low energy and carbon code by 2030 anyway. So we're only a few years out from that hard requirement to adopt. So that was a yes. Yep, every jurisdiction in the state of Colorado by 2030 will have to adopt the. Yep. Eventually, everyone will be aligned. We did talk a little about that. On that topic, where it would be great in some ways if the state would just kind of give us a baseline code across the board and say, here's your code, and you can tweak it and alter it and amend it and make it more restrictive in any way you want to. But until that day happens, we're kind of stuck with staggering adoption cycles. We were all in the 2018 code for a while, and that was great. But even so, we still have local jurisdictional amendments that contractors have to navigate and be aware of, and it's hard for them. But as Shauna expressed, that's a condition that exists across the state, if not across the nation. So, although it's a concern, there's not a ton we could do other than kind of just wait and see what other jurisdictions do. But we're not quite interested in doing that, I don't think so. Another topic that came up was the capacity of the electrical grid as it pertains to the requirement for all electric readiness. And to be clear, that is not the requirement to be all electric, right? You just have to provide the means to convert a home when the code requires it to be ready to become all electric. So you have to put your electrical infrastructure in. It has to be ready. So the example that came up was, if I decide if I have a gas stove and I'm doing a kitchen remodel and I want to put a new gas stove in, can I? The answer is yes, you certainly can. You just have to provide the appropriately sized electrical outlet for an electrical stove if and when someone wants to do that. So it's not a mandate to go all electric, but you have to provide the means to be able to be all electric. Related to the grid capacity, Kim Wheels with Eco Action Partners and has helped facilitate the grant process. We've had conversations with San Miguel Power, and everyone is expressing confidence that they will be able to accommodate increased load to the grid as it comes in. Obviously, this isn't going to be a, splash, everyone's all electric all at once. Projects will trickle in and they're confident they'll be able to handle that load. And then we talked a lot about heat pumps and dual fuel systems. And again, as it pertains to the utility companies and peak electric rates and how we can potentially help folks think about that, prepare for that, and if there's anything we can codify to help people take advantage of lower electricity rates at certain times. So I want to highlight that the discussion we had with the Planning Commission and the Board of Review was great, and there were a lot of great questions and kind of nitty-gritty questions that came out. You'll see in the next slide, one of the next steps forward that we have is to continue those conversations as needed with the Planning Commission in preparation for the August 13th date to have the amendments presented to them. And we'll also continue the conversation in that meeting as well. So by September, I feel pretty confident that we'll have a pretty great code resolution for you. And you can rely on the fact that it will have been pretty heavily scrutinized and thought about, so that when it gets to you, you're not having to have a 4-hour presentation of like nitty-gritty questions about energy code, because it's not intuitive and it's not really super easy for anyone to understand. And you all do a lot, and you have to be masters of a lot of different content. And so we want to do all we can on the front end to help make sure that what's presented before you can feel good about. Yes.
A little bit, the discussion on San Diego County's definition of a major remodel and the trigger points there. It sounds like there's some pretty robust conversation that was had with the Planning Commission and the Board of Review on that, and where we're landing there.
Yep. So generally defining like a percent of remodel or quantifying the scope of remodels sometimes is challenging, because, for example, if we say if the scope of your remodel exceeds 50% of the home, then you have to retrofit everything. Well, what is 50% remodel? Are we talking like dividing the house in half? No, the remodel may encompass components of the entire home. So how do we quantify the 50%? Do we draw a line and enclose walls and say you're affecting this room, so that's included? So it's tough to do. There are some already existing definitions of what constitutes a minor and a major remodel. There are some great definitions in the International Existing Building Code, which we will adopt. We have adopted now, but we can pluck language out of that and set it into the low energy and carbon code for our definition and how we're gonna quantify that. Haven't totally decided on that yet. That'll be part of that ongoing discussion, and certainly will come back up again in the Planning Commission meeting. Ms. Shauna, would you like to share any insight on how other jurisdictions have decided what constitutes a major remodel?
Yeah, I mean, that really is, I think it's different everywhere. I don't think anybody has come up with one solid answer. Right now, the low energy and carbon code has a definition for a substantial improvement that applies to parts of the code, and it talks about if you increase the market value by more than 50%. Some people are saying, well, if you increase the not the market value, but the assessed value, maybe that's a better number. Some people do it by a square footage. Some people do it by the cost of the, the valuation of the job, or use the existing building definitions. I mean, it is all over the board. What I can do is definitely provide all the different ones that are out there so that you kind of have an idea, but the state definitely left it up to the jurisdiction to figure out. There's some jurisdictions that want it to kick in more regularly, so they make the number small, and there's some jurisdictions that want it to never kick in, so they make the number huge, and so they really leave it up to the jurisdiction, so.
Thank you, Shauna. What I hear you saying is that this is a bit of a political decision based on our local economy, and that whatever metric we end up deciding on, we can set the bar high or low.
Yeah, you can set it where you feel will work for you, because it really is, that's one section of the code that is really jurisdiction dependent. What are your abilities? What are your goals? What do you want to do?
One question for you, based on your experience with all those different jurisdictional metrics, it feels to me like the two based on appraisal value or straight up market value are the most difficult to pin down and the most likely to be contested or discussed. Whereas percentage of building, sure, that's got some gray area, but it's a little more firm. Is there one in particular that you have seen other jurisdictions have the most success with and the least appeals?
Not really. I mean, I do see the majority of jurisdictions going with either a square footage or a valuation rate based on the cost of the permit. No matter what you do, there's going to be ways that people will find to work around it. If you base it on valuation, they'll just come in with, if you say, oh, if you anything over 10,000, then they're going to do 3 permits at 5,000. You know what I mean? So there's or square footage. If you base it on square footage and you say anything over 100 square feet, then they're going to do 3 permits at 350, whatever. So it doesn't really matter what you do. I think it's just going to be based on your goals, what will work easiest for your plan review and inspection to figure out if the plan is meeting that. But yeah, I will throw out a bunch of exceptions and which are definitions and which ones are used the most and submit that to you. But I agree that the ones based on valuation or based on market value or assessed value are the hardest, I think.
And it involves a degree of auditing from our office too, which we typically don't do. Other jurisdictions do a sort of revaluation process at the end. And we haven't done that. It's not to make an excuse, but it is hard work and time consuming. And as Shauna mentioned, and you all know, especially with remodels, we have scope creep all over the place. It's just common. It's not intentional all the time. And so if somebody presents a plan for construction and with a certain valuation attached to it, and the scope changes a little, it's difficult to quantify, the value of a particular remodel. And so just want to add that.
Ann and then Jared.
I think one thing to consider when we choose a methodology and, breakpoint or whatever is, less expensive homes in the region that would be owned by locals. I mean, we've seen the housing mitigation fee have an impact on, homes that are just over 2,000 square feet. And I would hate to, set something up that is harder for lower income, lower value homes to achieve or to comply with. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Jared.
I was just gonna mention it, I think it's, I would say fresh in our mind, maybe a little aged, but we recall that the remodel scenarios are always kind of difficult, right? And so I've been, in my thought process with these code amendments, I've been trying to keep in mind, we have 2 significant segments: new builds that are going to be the most efficient builds ever built in this county, right? And then we're going to have the remodels, and the remodels are the areas that get sticky and challenging. And we know that we did go through a bit of a commitment to revalue for the housing mitigation fee, right? That if somebody came in for a remodel and they end up saving, or having a smaller project than they originally brought to the table, that we as a county committed to say, hey, bring that paperwork back to us and we'll issue you a refund for the difference, right? So I think we do have examples of how we have affected a little bit of an audit process. I don't think we've used it regularly, but it may be something that helps us to conceptualize right sizing something as
Yeah.
we move ahead in this project.
Well, and thank you, Jared. And to clarify, just we do have a change order form process, and we use that mechanism to capture, changes in the plan set. If somebody's going to change the square footage of an addition or whatever, there's a process by which we receive new documents, as Jared alluded to. So we can accommodate changes to scope. Just the auditing of, how much did you pay for your lumber? Did you increase your cost of concrete? Can you provide us receipts for that? And those types of things is not something we've typically done to that degree.
Matt, are you looking for input at this point from this board to take to the planning commission meeting, or are you just presenting where you're headed?
Mostly presenting where we're headed. I want you to know that we are engaging in great conversations with obviously some good code experts and also our own local boards and commissions here. I would be interested in hearing if you have any questions or concerns, or I know I've already heard a couple. You want us to be cognizant of how, certain definitions and thresholds might affect, lower income type projects. And I've made a note of that, and we'll continue to work to that. And any other questions or general directives that you may have, I'd be happy to hear.
I would add that as you're going through these conversations with the planning commission, to try to steer the board towards the process that's going to be the least burdensome for your department. It seems like you've got plenty to keep track of, and whatever system is selected should be the most streamlined and the easiest for you all to process.
Okay.
And I'll add on, I agree with what both of you said about, being cognizant that this does not affect low income residents proportionately, and then, lessen the burden on the building department in whatever way possible. I also am curious if there was any conversation at the planning commission and board of review level around the type of remodel being done and how that might play into achieving climate goals, climate action, like i.e. a kitchen remodel in my mind might actually have more impact on that, on achieving lower carbon emission type of remodel, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm totally formulating that thought, but not only necessarily square footage or potentially market value increase, but what is being remodeled and what is the nature of the remodel, and if there's been any discussion around that, or if that is really even relevant.
I mean, let me see if I understand what you're asking. So are you asking, like, is the code or our potential amendments more focused on like tangible carbon reducing measures, or is it more like valuation kind of higher end or lower end home based?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. And also, like, if somebody's remodeling a family room and a garage, right, versus like bathrooms and kitchen and kind of like a more intensive remodel that might include more appliances or like a heating unit, things like that. Like in my mind that those are different kinds of remodels, and even though the square footage amount it might be a lot smaller for a kitchen and bathrooms, maybe more like intensive kind of remodel where there's a total overhaul of electricity or appliances, things that actually will move the needle on climate action, if that makes sense. So I'm just curious if that is applicable or if there's been kind of thought process along those lines.
I can speak to that if you, just briefly, the code is already written that way, so all throughout the low energy and carbon code, even in the existing building section, it will tell you, okay, like it might apply to a new addition because that's new construction. And some jurisdictions say only additions over 500 square feet or something, but, and then, it applies to a major remodel depending on how you define that, but it does give exceptions in there, and it'll say, you do not have to meet this requirement if you're not even changing out anything to do with heating, cooling, or water heating, right? Or you don't have to, and so it is going after those major type of things that will have the biggest impact, and it gives a lot of exceptions for projects that won't have very much of an impact. There are a lot of exceptions already built into the base code that we won't have to amend.
Awesome. Yeah, but that's what I was getting after, and thank you. That's some good clarification on that it is already defined. Yeah.
Commissioner?
Can't help but just like offer a thought that came to mind, even though I know you're not really here to collect those.
Oh, totally.
But
Please.
Shauna said about people breaking up their projects, into smaller chunks so that they don't trigger the code. Maybe there's some sort of a cumulative over time criteria, like we consider cumulative impacts when we are looking at special use permits and things like that. So, it's not just the single project, but how much work you've done over the past 5 years or 2 years or whatever that might be. All right, and now I'll stop.
No,
I've
that's-
had jurisdictions
Planning
do
Commission
that.
or the Board of Review.
I've seen jurisdictions do that, and then they only do it for like one code cycle because they're like, it is a lot to track. And then realizing that over time, even if they do break it up, you're still getting better each time. You might not get the cumulative, big, huge change, but you're gonna get little changes, and at least they're fixing it up, right? And maybe that was meant more to them than trying to track it all, because it is a hard process to figure out who's gonna track how many permits come in for a specific address.
We'll certainly consider that, and work with Shauna on something like that. I think one of the things I think of too immediately is, where a lot of the times the scope creep is truly accidental, right? Where someone will engage in some sort of remodel or repair, and then they uncover a massive problem. And then while they're fixing that, they uncover another massive problem. I've been involved in projects like that as a contractor, and they're terrible. And it happens. And so things like that, there's just a lot of, I hate to say it, but there's just a lot of gray. But I do like the idea of, letting people know I mean, at some point we have to say, the code is the code, and sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. We want to certainly be sensitive though to unplanned costs, especially when those costs have their roots in like compliance. Right. So we want to be very upfront and give people, I mean, no one likes to get into projects like that. And when they hear the news, oh, too, you got to pay another $5,000 for a new permit application. And then also you got to add $25,000 to now have compliant, whatever, mechanical equipment or heat pumps or whatever the thing may be. It feels like they're just getting it from all sides. And we hear that a lot. And so we want to be sensitive to that as well. But I do certainly will incorporate your idea and consider it, and network with Shauna to get something at least cooked up and thought. Do you have any other questions or any topics that you would like to hear about, or have me report back later via some written correspondence or something like that for you? Or Shauna, welcome to answer any questions or even just interject as you want to, Shauna. We all trust you. What are your thoughts?
That was a very direct question, Matt,
Yeah.
and I'm
If-
content to let the planning commission chew on this. I don't need updates, and I'm happy to take a look at their final decision and maybe hear a summary of their discussion and how they ended up there.
Okay.
Does that sound all right?
Yeah, that's good direction. And I guess just one other thought in closing. Of course, we're looking at compliance here and the looming deadline of January 2030, but also looking at our own goals of climate action. And that can be at odds with affordability, right? And that is really the balance we're trying to strike here. So just, I know that the planning commission is aligned there and understand that balance to strike, but that, you know, if we can get as close to finding a balance between those two initiatives, and not inhibiting affordability while also trying to move forward climate action is the real tricky thing here.
Understood.
Developing this code. Yeah.
I will pass that along. I think, as you said, that has been the kind of tone of the conversations we've had is what is practically, what does this mean? How will it affect people? What does this section mean? Will I be required to do this? While understanding that, yeah, we want better and more efficient codes and provide better services for our folks here in the county. So, Shauna, do you have anything you'd like to impart in closing?
I don't think so. I think you guys have done a great job of looking at it from all angles. Some jurisdictions just write a code and say, okay, here's what you get. You don't throw a fit, right? You guys have been very active and getting a lot of feedback, and the cohort that has been involved in this has been doing a lot of feedback. So I think you guys are on the right track, and I think we hear what you're saying, and I'll make sure that I make some recommendations accordingly.
Great. So next steps are to again work with the Planning Commission, really dial in those amendments. For the LECC, we'll start with our amendment package has been given to us through consultants through the grant that we've participated in. We'll continue that engagement as you've asked us to do. We'd be presenting that code resolution to the Planning Commission on the 13th of August and back to you and planning for September 16th. That might slide to the 22nd. I have to check with Carmen and everyone else on the dates and what's happening on those dates for you all. And we'll begin enforcement by fall of next year. And again, just to recap, this timeline allows us to continue to take advantage of those grant funds that we've been participating in so far. So with that, thank you for your time and your ears and your attention, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. We look forward to the next step in the process.
Thanks, Shauna.
All right. We are on to item 7C, which is a presentation of the Road and Bridge High Country Road Opening Policy. Ryan Rigetti, our Road and Bridge Supervisor, is with us. Good morning, Ryan. Recall that we took a stab at this about 2 meetings ago, and I bet that we're really close now. Let's find out. Yes.
Agenda, but do you think we could have a brief update from Ryan on what's happening on the highways, either before or after we discuss the task policy?
Ryan, do you want to talk about current events first, and then we'll dig into policy?
Yeah, well,
Great.
it seems like most of the storms that we've been getting have been building over Mount Wilson, over that area. And then either coming out over Sunshine or going out over Wilson Mesa and then or out towards Iron Springs. So recently, the event that happened last night it dropped, I think what was reported was about 4 inches of rain, and probably in about 15-20 minutes worth of time. So there was a lot of debris that came out of the mountain in about a mile stretch of the road. So every channel, storm channel that came off Iron Springs back towards the river was impacted. We didn't really get a lot of damage up going across Specie Mesa, and so that was used occasionally for vehicles to get through, you know, if the line got long on the highway, but we sent a couple of members from our team from the Deep Creek and also the Norwood to kind of help out CDOT, work for both directions and help get the highway open. So they were pretty inundated. And so the highway's open. CDOT has multiple days of cleaning drains and going back and repairing infrastructure and damage that happened during the storm from last Saturday and also from yesterday. But yeah, all the highways are open. We're still doing some repairs up on 60N, up on Wilson Mesa, cleaning some drains from the event that we had this weekend and also on Monday. So that's where we're at. All the roads are open and everything's passable now. We opened Tomboy Road this morning. Yeah, Tomboy Road was open this morning. The town, they were able to complete the work on their rockfall fence and get all that cleaned and stabilize the road at the bottom where the water line was. And they completed that work yesterday evening. So we went up first thing this morning and pulled the barricades and then opened the gate this morning. So the Jeep companies there was already, when I was coming down, there was a Jeep tour company going up and somebody in front of them. So the people are already using it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would just ask, I know some of the commissioners got calls from Jeep tour operators. I fielded numerous calls and I would coordinate that information with Ryan and then also with Megan Knowles, our pumpkin patient specialist. And if you are getting calls so that we're not each trying to call Ryan or whatever, if I could ask you to funnel any of those to me, if they have not already spoken to Ryan, I think we can hopefully streamline some of that communication. And I would just caution that, you know, I know on Sunday morning, the Placerville drainage that we implemented near Surprise Drive, luckily that area had not been hit heavily by rains. The drainage structure, mitigation structure is holding up really well. So kudos to Ryan and his crew for getting that done a couple of years ago. But because those CDOT drains continue to be almost fully plugged, there's only one in the corridor between Keystone Hill and Saw Pit that is not clogged. We can expect if there are additional rains that we will have debris flow. We've been trying to inform folks that they should be ready to stay in place wherever they are, if they're at work, or make arrangements if they have childcare or issues with getting home, that they should have discussions and have a plan so that they're not stranded for hours at a time. Or they're likely to be stranded for hours at a time until these drains get back open, but we saw how quickly they were plugged. So it's not to say until something massive is done on Highway 145, we're going to continue to have this.
Does CDOT have any kind of a process the way, you know, fire departments do and so forth for bringing in extra crews from other parts of the state? Or are we reliant on our own regional staff?
So for local events like this, it's going to be the staff from the local maintenance shops. Anything longer than that, or I would estimate that they would probably have to plan that. Then it would probably take a day or two, similar to how they plan, you know, during storm events when there's, you know, avalanches. They plan for days before that, get everything in place. And so I would estimate that it would be the same with this. If they needed to get resources from other parts of the state, it would probably be a day or two before they would get.
It's a possibility if they get way overloaded.
I would have to defer that to CDOT, but I would say that they would have that plan in place that they could respond to that emergency if they do get stretched thin, that, and we can't, you know, and our assistance is insufficient.
And I just wanted to mention that we know our regional office is headquartered in Durango. And so that office recognized kind of what's happening within their region, dispatch that region's resources as they see fit.
Okay.
And then we are also pretty optimally placed that we are very close to the Montrose Gunnison region as well. So I think that they call in favors back and forth regularly between regional CDOT districts.
I know that one of the new procedures that they're implementing this year and this is from our department head update this week was that in the past, the focus was to get a lane open and get traffic moving. But is what that did was it caused longer durations for them to actually get into the highway open. So now CDOT's focusing more on making sure that once the highway is closed because of an event, that they get both lanes open. They get one lane open for emergency traffic if they have to get people through, but they're not going to reopen the road, and CSP is not going to open the road until both lanes are open to traffic. So it could be longer delays in the short, but then till they get both.
But more efficient.
But more efficient overall, exactly.
I will say the alerts have been very helpful and are like the stream of communication to be able to plan accordingly for these highway closures. And as somebody who lives in Norwood and is commuting to work, it has been working, and I'm just thinking about, that information is shared with residents, but visitors coming through the area, we're pretty reliant really on Kodo,
Yeah.
and even social media. People might tune in that way to get the information. But I'm curious if county communications goes straight to Kodo, or Kodo just tunes into that and reports accordingly.
Well, so working with Mike and also Megan, I know that Megan's the one that reaches out and she has that outreach. Other than, my communication with Ashley in the office, and then we get information on that we share from our Road and Bridge website or update our website on our Facebook page, and then that gets disseminated to everybody, including Megan, and she helps expand that. And I do believe Kodo is on Ashley's email list, because we have an email list of everybody that wants to be included in updates, and then we have a master list and just send it out to everybody so they get up to date. That's on our website. After 4 or after 5 o'clock, after the end of the day, then they might take a little bit longer if Ashley's gone home for the day, but we try to make sure that we have the last day.
Great.
I know part of the conundrum with the Tomboy Road was the difference in website information. So, I know I've reached out to the town, I know Ryan has, as well. Ryan received big kudos this morning from Kyle Beck, so for his and his crew's ongoing assistance while they're trying to get that repaired of closing the road and keeping our information really well updated. Hopefully with this greater communication, the same messages can be put out, because I know there was some difference in the potential opening timeline for Tomboy that was causing consternation.
Galena, I was thinking about visitors and where they might get their information. Mike reminded me yesterday about CoTrip, which is the CDOT app, which we all can use. And I assume that gets pretty efficiently updated as well. Like, are they on our email list, or how does that work?
I'm not sure exactly how CDOT updates that internally, but I know that it does, that they do have location devices on their plows, on their equipment, so you can see where they're actively working. And they do, it is pretty close to real time when they get those reports from their field crews that go into that system.
But for instance, I was looking at CoTrip when the highway was inundated in the canyon yesterday, and they were lagging behind that update.
Yeah.
But previous Saturday, they were pretty darn accurate timing, so. But I still think it's the best place for visitors that might not have access to Kodo, or may not be signed up for San Miguel alerts, to receive that info.
Now, they still have quite a few active cameras on there too.
Fantastic.
Good point.
Excuse me.
Thank you for that
Yeah.
spontaneous update.
Yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely. All right, so this is just a follow-up on our policies from the notes that we made after the last discussion. And I forwarded Carmen the final draft there. I guess the only change that I made from the one I think I forwarded Carmen was, instead of adopted, it was just reviewed by the BOCC on today's date. And but other than that, the copy you guys have should be the most up to date, so we can just review through that real quick.
I'm
It's
sorry,
just-
I'm unclear about what you just said about
So,
adopted versus reviewed.
So this is not intended to be a BOCC policy. This is intended to be a road bridge policy with commissioner review and input and direction given to Ryan. But I wanted to make that difference, so that the public would know the BOCC did review this policy and give direction. However, it is a road bridge policy that may be changed subject to the numerous conditions that we find ourselves in each year.
And or will you say that somewhere on the policy, that it was reviewed by the VOCC
Yeah.
or?
Yep, that's in the top, that's gonna be in the first, instead of adopted by the BOCC, it's just reviewed by BOCC on today's date. Oh, okay, well, then,
Was that?
the version of the packet, it would be right under the High Country Pass openings
Okay.
policy.
So does that mean that the one version that's in the packet is not the most updated? Is that
It
the
is.
only change?
That's the only change,
That is the only change, okay, great.
yeah.
Well, commissioners, knowing that we took a look at this previously and gave direction and that Ryan's incorporated that direction, unless we've had a change in our thinking, I do see there's a couple members of the public and I'm guessing they would like to address this proposed policy, and unless you've got thoughts right now, I'd be happy to hear some public comment and then we can circle back. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Great. Joan or John, which of you would care to step up to a microphone?
I have not reviewed, seen the proposal.
Oh.
So,
Well, in that case,
I'm starting a good step at you back.
okay, you're here to listen and learn.
Like, yes, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Maybe we should go over it then on the
Yeah, you
screen.
could run through it. So our pass. Yeah. What's that?
Do you have a copy that we could cast on the screen?
It's in the packet, so we could just pull
Okay.
that.
That's not the most updated one?
It's just missing that one
Okay,
phrase
it's
about
just missing
reviewed
one
by the
phrase,
BOCC.
Or at the very top.
Who is?
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Meg.
Thank you.
So many buttons.
Yes,
That's
that's.
the one. Can you make it?
That's still not the version showing what Ryan
Yeah, mine,
has.
The only change is under the title of the document to say it's been reviewed, but.
Right,
on
substance
today's date.
is the same.
Correct. All right, Ryan, why don't you maybe hit the highlights as we go through, and Megan, if you could make that as large as possible.
Okay.
They'll be on the screen. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, so our pass opening, the objectives on how we open the passes. And in the years of standard snowfall, so the average snowfall, the county's objectives are to open Last Hour Road by Memorial Day. Then open Ophir Pass next, unless extraordinary snow year has impacted Ophir and Imogene passes differently. In which case we may open to the town of Tomboy. However, this has been a challenge and it's unlikely in most years. So the schedule will be as explained in the established order. So all passes should be open by July 4th, and that's pretty consistent historically, no matter how much snow we've had, that we've been able to get all passes open. Except Black Bear by July 4th, and then Black Bear is usually the week or the week after that. This year it was the fire that caused the delay more than it was anything else. In high snow years, openings may be delayed. Low snow years, we'll have to coordinate with the US Forest Service and some of the other adjacent counties to make sure that that if we do open the passes early, we take consideration each pass depending on conditions of compliance with the US Forest Service travel management. So their plan, we have to make sure that we don't do something that isn't inconsistent with their travel management. So established order of opening is Last Dollar Road, Ophir Road, and then Tomboy Road from the town of Telluride up to the town of Tomboy. And then we'll continue after that up to Imogene Pass, and then we'll move over to Black Bear. And then Bridal Veil K69 to the top of Bridal Veil, Idarano Mine is
Sorry, can you, well, there we go.
So, and this is just a note that that lower section of Bridal Veil is opened by the Idarano Mine, and they have a permit for us each year to get up to access their infrastructure and start working on that before the snow really melts off the switchbacks. And so it's been, they've cleaned it in the past, but it's not, if they choose not to do it, then it might not get done. And then Norwood Dolores Road, there's no gate currently. And so some years it remained, this last year it remained open all year. Where we discussed talking to Dolores County about putting a gate up because they had made that request in the past. So we're going to continue that conversation. After that last meeting with the fires, we didn't really reach out to them. I didn't reach out to them because I knew they were pretty busy down there. And so after, I figured we would follow up after everything's wrapped up. But that's still on the plan to get a gate or work on a gate if Dolores County still chooses to go that route.
And Ryan, apologies for the interruption, but because of that statement you made about Idarado, so Idarado has given us no indication that they are going to stop plowing up to the waterfall area on K69. They do have new management. We're in regular contact with them. Should they ever have a time where they could cease that operation, which is extremely unlikely given their level of water infrastructure and the shared infrastructure that they have with the town of Telluride. I mean, we're talking less than 0.25% chance that in our lifetimes or foreseeable future, they would stop. But at that point, if it were to happen, we would have a discussion with the commissioners about, is that a section that you would wish to prioritize or ask Road Bridge to take over? But it's pretty safe and solid that they need to gain access to their water infrastructure. So I just wanted to make sure we are all following that.
All right, then considerations for opening. The snow depth at each location, the debris to be cleared, and the expected days, weeks required to clear. Discussion and coordination with US Forest Service and adjacent counties. Consideration of other road and bridge responsibilities, spring grading, dust control, crew safety, machinery and related costs and equipment and personnel. Council as needed from the BOCC if necessary to deviate from this policy. So and then this next section goes into kind of how the gates will be managed. The gates that are in place, that have been placed by, the US Forest Service, either by us at the US Forest Service or by the US Forest Service itself. And Ophir Road. So at the top of the pass, San Miguel County is going to place barricades, or San Juan County will place barricades. We're going to provide the barricades, and they will place barricades on a road close sign at the pass, and then we'll remove them when we get to the top.
To indicate, or do we know, or is it important when those barricades will be placed?
They'll be placed when San Juan County makes the summit, because they make the summit before we do.
Oh, okay, they clear their side and that's when they install them.
Exactly, yeah. So when their crews make it to the top, then they'll post the barricades at that time, and they'll continue working.
Do you think that should be part of it, or is that obvious to other people?
Well, that's
Just the trigger, isn't it?
that's the trigger, yeah. Nobody else can get up there until they've made that, and they won't open their side until they've opened that top. Then Ophir Road, the west gate near the town, where near the Ophir town boundary. The gate will be swung closed when the gate's accessible in the spring, because that gate, I think Megan kind of explained in that last discussion about how that gate works, where typically that road's open until the snow makes it impassable, and then when that happens, we can't even access the gate to swing it close. Plus, there's still some winter activity on that road. I think over the snow activity that still occurs on that. But anyways, as soon as we can get back up to that gate, we'll swing that gate closed. It'll remain closed until we get the top open, the road's dried. And we pull it. And then Black Bear at the top of the pass, the gate, now this gate is actually located within San Juan County. That gate belongs to the San Juan National Forest, and it's managed by them. They communicate with San Juan County and us, and so that gate, it's closed. Typically, it remains open until either the gate's acceptable or it's just used for emergency purposes to keep people from coming into our county. So that gate, it's kind of it's not. We don't rely on that gate. The snow for Black Bear is more what keeps people out of there. And then we can move to Tomboy, Amagi. So east of the town of Tomboy from Eureka, similar to San Juan County, we're gonna provide barricades to Eureka County, and when they reach the summit, they'll place barricades at the top, give us a chance to get up to the top. We'll remove those barricades from the top. And then the gate is gonna be closed when crews have cleared to the historic town of Tomboy. The upper gate is gonna be closed. And then that gate remains closed until we clear to the pass. And then on the Telluride side, the gate's closed in the fall after the first substantial snow or after 11:30 in accordance with the travel management plan. So that road actually has a hard closure date for motorized vehicles, where from 12/1 to 5/15, no motorized vehicles are allowed on that road.
Just as a quick interjection, I know that the commissioners previously had referred to the Uray County chart that showed the past statuses. And the only difference, Ashley, Lammers, and Ryan worked to create a similar chart on our website that is accessible, though. The example, we couldn't do exactly what Uray County did because theirs is inaccessible. We want to continue to meet our digital accessibility standards per state law. But we are going to add in an additional column. We said we would wait until after the discussion today to hear if there was any nuances or changes suggested by the board to add what that US Forest Service seasonal closure is, with a huge, note on the bottom, but that does not indicate when the pass will be open, but when it is legally able to be.
And just for clarity, that's based on a US Forest Service winter travel management plan that's been stated, and that is, Imogene is the only road that Road and Bridge is maintaining that actually has that winter travel management plan stated. No.
Yes.
Does Black Bear as well?
Black Bear and also Last Dollar.
Okay, so
Beaver-
Ophir is the one road that.
So that, and Megan, when she was here last, reminded us that even though that Ophir Pass was not included in the soft road bed closure designation of the travel management plan, that she would wish to treat it as such until their new travel management plan comes out.
And that travel management plan covers the Gunnison, the Uncompahgre, and the whole GMUG. So the Grand Mesa National Forest. So it's for all of those forests. So and then
I just did hear from Megan, I wanted to make sure she knew we were talking about this. She is logging in now to be able to add any flavor.
right. So then, on Last Dollar, the south gate, which is the gate on the T60 side above Grayhead. So that gate is accessible. And so that gate is closed after 11:30 for US Forest Service orders. And then the gates reopened after 5:15. The north gate is closed at 11:30 or in the spring. It depends on how early we get a snow. There's some years, because we don't do winter maintenance out there, that if we get early snows and it's before 12/1, that we can't get to the gate, but we will close it in the spring when we can't access it. So that's on the north gate that's from the.
I have a question.
Yep.
The language with Southgate says or 11:30 per US Forest Service orders. Is that the same? Do you mean in accordance with the travel management plan, or do they make decisions and send out orders?
If they, well, so there's certain times, like even at Beaver Park, if there's times where they ask us to close the gate that's outside of that time, then they'll ask us to swing gates, either swing them closed or open. They'll say we can either open them or they'll have their crews. So that could also say, as for the travel management plan as well. Yeah. And then both of those gates are open after we've had a chance to clear the snow and the road is dry after 5:15. And then Beaver Park, so these gates are closed by US Forest Service order after 11:30, and that's the travel management plan that's referenced there also. And then those roads are open when the Beaver Park area has melted out and the road surfaces are dry. And that date's also determined by the US Forest Service, that with communication with the district ranger. And primarily because we don't do any winter maintenance on any of those roads. So then our communication plan. So signs, the road closed sign ahead, that we have on Ophir, and our last dollar will be up when the road becomes impassable or when the gates have been closed. Pass closed at San Miguel County signs will be placed in San Juan County and Uray County. And this is one of the new things that we discussed, to give motorists advance warnings of road closures. I know that in this last event, when we had Tomboy Road closed, Uray County did put an advance sign up there for us at the beginning over in their county to let people know that they couldn't come all the way in.
A flip sign that they can open and close.
It'll be a flip sign that's located at the beginning of the route when they start that route. So their crews can easily open those up. And then update High Country passes, the table and the status of changes beginning in May until all passes are open, beginning again. And then as far as the verbiage, this is that additional on our grid that we're going to include the US Forest Service soft bed road closure dates. And it will say in each category or on each road, there'll be, the road closed to motorized vehicles 12/1 to 5/15. And it says, and it'll give a recommendation to consult US Forest Service travel management plan for more details. Then that will be on our website. All right. We have one last. Okay, alert the public by social media, San Miguel County and San Miguel County Road and Bridge sites. And then alert to BOCC and touring industry by email. San Miguel County Communications Coordinator, mirror communications sent by Road and Bridge staff on all updated posts. And that was in play during this last event that we had up there on Tomboy. And then we're going to make sure that the posts occur when status changes on the road. Post when the pass is open for the season, or they're closed for the season, or if there's any changes to the previous announcements or our status.
I have one question about the alerts and outreach. Are there emails being sent to the municipalities about these openings and closures?
Yes, they're included in the email list and the email blast that goes out.
Great. It might be good to just write that in this policy as well, but that outreach happens just so it's memorialized. Because that is an important stream of communication, specifically the town of Ophir and the town of Telluride, that they know the timing.
Okay.
Oh, maybe you could just say alert to the NCC, surrounding jurisdictions and touring industry by email.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know that I get those emails. I'm just writing Ashley right now to request it. Do you guys want them also?
I would.
I get them.
I don't.
I'll ask her to add the.
neighboring jurisdictions or something like that.
And you can also go to the county website and just
Sign up.
sign up.
Distracted.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate you walking us through where we ended up. I appreciate Megan Eno joining us. And I think, John, now that you've had a chance to at least hear it verbally and squint at it on the small screen, if you or Joan have any comments or questions, now's a good time to come up to a microphone.
I would like to just note one thing, since I know, Joan and John and many others were present at an earlier meeting. We've now had probably 3 or 4 of these discussions about the past policy. And I know we had discussed the potential of mobilizing to the town of Tomboy before we started on overpass. And as Ryan and I kept discussing that, he identified that exit out of Marshall Basin and the ice that is on there makes that section one of the more dangerous ones, not only for his operators and equipment, but also the wear and tear and the time it takes to trailer that dozer back and forth. Is something that takes away days from our ability to work on the other passes. I know we had a dozer go down this year and we had to send it out for repair. That's the one we just spent $150,000 on. So there is some large safety concerns and costs with that idea of we'll do Tomboy and then we'll go back to over. That's why Ryan had suggested, in an anomalous snow year, perhaps we do that plan, but in most years, it would be a lot safer and more efficient to do overpass first and then transfer over and do Tomboy and IMG.
Mike, thanks for that reminder. And John, I noticed that as Meg mentioned that plan, your head was nodding and you were smiling. We discussed that at length at a previous meeting, and that's, as Mike mentioned, crew safety was really paramount in our decision-making there. And Ryan described what his crews have to do to kind of skate across that ice and chip at it. And it sounded like it was a circus we did not want to submit or subject anybody to on our road and bridge staff. So if that changes your comments a little bit, I wanted to give you that preamble before you jumped in.
Yeah, that's really, it does.
Thanks.
I'm recalling our previous meeting when we
Yes,
agreed that at least if it was feasible, it might benefit both Ophir and also
You're
the guide services.
you're exactly
to do
right.
things in that order instead. And it's a request that we've made. It's been handled inconsistently over the last 20 years without clear criteria, and I haven't had an understanding about what the safety issues really might be. We can see anecdotally when we go hiking up Tomboy Road in late May in a year like this one. It seems obvious that with just a quick pass with the dozer, we could be open to Tomboy.
Sure.
So I guess my standing request would be we could keep that idea alive.
It's
and
incorporated.
It is practical.
It's incorporated.
Also understand that there may be, and maybe you could tell me more about that, Ryan, because I haven't been around this a long time. I've never heard that situation described explicitly. I mean, I would certainly assume there are safety issues that I don't understand, but it sounds like you guys have in past years had some real safety concerns about that Marshall Basin section of the road, and we're trying to clear it on the early end like this.
It's actually, it's actually in the Royer Gulch section along the cliff walls there. Yeah. On
The Royer section.
The Royer section.
And is the issue debris fall from above during the clearing process?
There's several sections there where clear ice, where that clear ice forms on the road.
Yeah.
The road is just the same width as the dozer.
Yeah.
And getting across and getting to where we can rip that clear ice to get it to melt. There might not be much on there, but it's enough that the risk to the crews when they try to cross that or work on that ice that's frozen to the rock there, it's very difficult. And
Yeah.
so that's ultimately those 99% of the road will be clear and dry, but there's just those few small sections that when the sun gets a little higher in the sky and the aspect changes and it gets a little more sun and it has a chance to cut that ice loose for us to get past it. And then we can get to the area up, past the air compressor and then get that area up above Marshall. And that, because most of the snow up from Marshall in that area, it is, and it's not really as a concern, and we can push through that snow pretty easy. But it's the Royer Gulch section that can be the challenge. And it's just a couple areas where that snow's deposited and freeze thaw, and it creates a large, section of clear ice that we can't get up. Even going over Imogene, over the pass, it's the same thing. We can push the snow off of it, but we'll spend a couple days up there ripping and cutting ice, trying to get the ice down, to where we can open the road. It's that clear ice that's the challenge.
So, John, based on that description, and Ryan actually took a little more time last meeting and presented a hair-raising story of one of his crew being on that narrow section where the dozer and the road are the same width and the dozer started sliding. We all agreed that we couldn't in good conscience push that opening and risk somebody's life up there. So I'm glad that you got that explanation. I'm glad that you understand it. And yes, there is language in here that addresses if it is possible, we'll do it first. So we hear you, but we're balancing true safety.
I don't disagree with any of that. There are a lot of things that can cause delayed pass openings.
True.
And every year I learn about one of the most.
Yeah, this was a new twist for us as well.
I appreciate this. I mean, this group has been addressing this issue diligently, in particular over the last couple of years. And that's what I can ask for. That's what I would ask of you. This is important. It affects us. It affects our businesses greatly. And so we appreciate your scrutiny and your diligence on this. So thanks for answering our questions. It'll remain important to us.
Thanks.
I got one other little tiny thing. Make sure the devil can be in the details on all these alerts and openings and things. There's a little flip sign right at the bottom of Tomboy Road that says gate closed ahead. Make sure that thing gets folded up when the gate's not closed ahead. Otherwise, people start calling, tell you right outside. So anyway, that sign has been errantly down for most of the last month. And I took a picture of it about 2 weeks ago, meaning to raise it. Tiny little thing, but just
No, it's a huge thing.
if there's a flip sign, flip it.
Yeah. Also, please let us know,
Yeah.
Road and Bridge know if any of you guys know.
Sure. I am the squeaky wheel. I hate to be the squeaky wheel. I don't see that as a
We
very
appreciate
admirable
this.
role in life, but I will. Of course, I'll let you know.
Squeak. because
Thanks,
things
thanks,
can
thanks,
slip
thanks.
through the, but through the cracks if there's no squeak sometimes.
Well, thanks for that. I also just want to throw out that something that I found very useful is Uray County's Facebook page that's dedicated to the High Mountain passes. In the spring, when they're working on their passes, they make daily posts as to updates, and they include some fun photographs and dudes in the dozer on top and creeks that are all washed out and this kind of thing. But it's actually a really appropriate and useful set of updates, and they make those updates on their Facebook page on a daily basis. I think that we have in the past maybe struggled a little bit with finding the right format, the right platform for messaging, like what will the general public actually use. And what we hear is the general public uses that particular Facebook page consistently.
We have a San Diego County Facebook page as well as a Road and Bridge Facebook page. Do you think we should just consolidate those into a San Diego County Facebook page and maybe rather than having your office have to do all this communication in addition to all the work on the roads, turn that over to our comms department or just because it's really important, not only to the outfitters, but to visitors and just general community using these roads to know what's happening.
Yeah.
For safety reasons as well as convenience.
Well, and I can say that Uray County with their pass opening and their procedures is completely different than ours. So they commit 100% of their resources in the springtime to opening the high country passes. They have all of their staff working, they have multiple dozers and they're working on multiple roads at the same time. And so they have, you look at their pass policy or their pass updates, I think there's 15 or 20 roads or, more all that are on that. We have 4. So ours are, our updates won't happen as quickly as theirs because we're not opening the same amount of roads. And and ours isn't changing as quickly as theirs is on their side. I know San Juan County is kind of similar as well. Their road systems they're different, a lot different than ours. It's not, our operations are a lot different than the Uray counties and San Juan counties and Hinsdale's. And so I mean, this is, I appreciate for your understanding that it is a challenge and it changes so much drastically every single year. That's why for me, it's really hard and I'm really hesitant to make it a policy because a policy is something that has harder dates, and having some flexibility makes it easier for us. And but the big thing is the information and getting the info out, and that's what this focus is making sure that we're consistent with that information and that we're working off of a plan that you guys are aware of too, so you guys can plan on that. And we understand your position and we've discussed it many times in the past, and we do take that into account anytime we make a decision up there, is how this impacts not just you guys, but the public and also the residents up here as well. So
I know you do. I appreciate that, and I appreciate all your responses to my individual emails. I think if there were if the information were updated, if we're only working on 4 roads, it shouldn't take us very long to do an update every day. That would help me. That would save most of the emails that I send to you saying, "What are you working on? What are you working on?" So anyway,
We did ask the road and bridges included in this policy to adapt the table that Uray County uses. Wasn't that from Uray County, Mike?
Yes.
So we'll now have a table on our website and on our Facebook.
We already do.
We already
Yeah,
have, it's already
we
there.
We're gonna add just the one item I spoke about.
That one
the
column.
surface.
And it does, require them to post when the status changes.
great.
So I think, Brian, it's a really good point about why it's not as frequent in San Miguel County, but now that is the direction that the department has been given.
great, yeah.
Let's slide over to Commissioner May. Welcome, Joan. How are you?
Whatever my title is. Hi, Joan May, and I am here as a resident of Ophir. I'm not speaking in any official capacity, but I really appreciate this conversation. I'm going to start with some thank yous. Having a policy is just, as John said, is a very good step, and many, many people in the community, not that I can speak for them, but I appreciate it, and I think others do as well. I completely understand the challenge of having a policy, because then you have these hard and fast dates, but the way the policy is written doesn't have the hard and fast dates, and it does give people some indication of what the plan is. So even if that's all we got out of this, I think it's a huge win. So thank you all for prioritizing this in your very, very big list of priorities. And then some specific thank yous. This year, from what I'm hearing and in my experience, was just excellent in so many ways. The barricade at the top of the pass on the San Juan County side was huge. Nobody was coming over and getting stuck. That was great. I have heard from people who understand vegetation that the work that Road and Bridge did this time was really great, of preserving the roadbed and not disturbing vegetation on Overpass. I'm talking about Overpass and all of this. So that was great. And then the road closed signs flipped for the first time I've seen. So thank you. When the road is open, the closed signs are flipped. I mean, why have signs if they're not going to be accurate? So thank you for that. The gate was closed when you said it, when the snow started melting, and it didn't open again until the pass opened, which I can't overstate how important that is, because people really get stuck and they're like, oh, the gate's open, I guess I'll go up there. And then the communication was really good. The alerts and text telling people when it's open. I agree that Facebook presence, a little bit more Facebook presence would probably help. So those are my thank yous. I have a couple of questions. So in your list of who you coordinate with, Galina mentioned the municipalities. I know John Wontrowski, I think I saw his name on here. It would be great if Ophir town staff, which is one person, John Wontrobski, would be included in the communications about pass opening. I mean, and even this meeting today, he was not aware of that. So if you could, Ophir and Telluride are impacted, the municipalities. I can't speak for Telluride at all, but for Ophir, it's really important. And then one other consideration I didn't see you had on your list of considerations for when passes get open. In one of these meetings, I was very astounded by the dollar number that it takes to get the passes open early. And I wonder if that's in the considerations, like even this past year, which was a very dismal snow year, there was quite a bit of snow on that corner on Ophir Pass, that top one. And it took a week or longer, a couple of weeks to get it open. And I wonder if that's obviously the BOCC's and the county's discretion, but taxpayer dollars, like you'll appreciate this. People in Ophir are like, why don't we just give that money to, Telluride outside rather than spending hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I would appreciate that.
Rather than, not that I'm telling you what to do, but it might be a consideration to consider cost also in your considerations.
Joan, during budget cycle, we take a look at every cost, as you know, you've done that process. And what we're balancing, as you also know, is the desire for access to public lands.
Yeah.
With the ability for our budget and our crews to do the work. So thanks for that reminder.
Okay.
And cost is listed as a consideration
Oh,
for the
okay.
opening, it's machinery and related costs, equipment and personnel.
Okay, good, great. And then, that's all my comments. I want to thank you for all of this. And this is more of a sheriff's issue than a BOCC issue, but I'm seeing an uptick in unlicensed vehicles coming over Pass, like big time, like more razors and unlicensed dirt bikes. And I will say, I'm really grateful that the sheriff's office, I'm seeing them up there, which I haven't really seen before. I don't think they happen to be there right when the illegal vehicles are there, but it's a lot of use on the pass road. Of course, it's a recreation thing that people like, which is fine, but the illegal use is a bummer. So that's not your concern. I just want to mention while we're talking about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Joan. Thank you, John. Appreciate you
Thank
both
you.
coming. And it's really kind of you to remember to say thank you.
Listen, appreciate it. Appreciate it greatly.
Great. Ryan.
Yeah, I'll reach out to John Debian and have him just get us a list of everybody that we can add to that. Are they from the town that wants to be added to that list? We'll add them.
Perfect. So the language that we're adding is, as Galena mentioned, adding the two towns, or at least town of Telluride and Ophir, to our update list under the communications bullets.
Yes.
Perfect.
And thank you both. I mean, you really, I don't want to say pushed, sounds like you were pushy and you weren't, but you really, pressed us to handle this as we should be handling it, and showed up at a lot of meetings and looked at a lot of documents and drafts. And so thank you both so much. This is, I think, a really good example of, democracy working. We need our citizens engaged as well as our elected officials and staff. And I know it's time consuming and sometimes frustrating, but this is how we get better. So thank you very much.
No, we see you working on it every week, every month, all year. So it's very visible to us as well.
All right. I'm going to end the Love Festival. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all. Enjoy the afternoon.
I know we're gonna end, but Ryan, thank you for your work on this.
Oh,
Really,
absolutely.
this policy is a huge step, so.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
May the rains come gently, Ryan. Okay, we are on to item 7D, which is consideration of the Counties and Commissioners Acting Together, aka CCAT 2027 policy proposals, and Commissioner Brown, as our representative, is going to walk us through.
Can I
Urgently.
request
Oh.
just a really.
I apologize. Of course you may. It is currently 11:04. Let's return to 11:10.
Lance just press it through.
Thank you, everybody. Welcome back. We are on to 7D, and this is consideration of the counties and commissioners acting together. 2027 policy proposals. Commissioner Brown.
Hello, friends. We have been asked by counties and commissioners acting together to complete a survey of possible policy concepts for CCAT. So they, commissioners and counties and other people bring sort of legislative concepts forward around this time of year to eventually potentially be shaped into a bill to be considered by the legislature. I think they convene in January, state legislature, and so CCAT is trying to sort out their priorities. In the packet were what is a copy of the survey itself, and that includes summaries of the proposals. So we can look through that and we'll I'll answer the questions on paper here and then complete the survey at a later time. There were some backup documents as well. A set of county revenue diversity concepts. So that's kind of like a drilling down on that larger concept or different ideas for potential revenue sources that we might request be permitted by the legislature. So that's what we're gonna do. And then the third attachment to the agenda was a draft, very early draft bill from Representative Lee Joseph for an excise tax, which is one of the revenue diversity concepts. So we'll just talk through that. I see if anybody has comments on that. Is that kind of clear about what we're doing? And I had asked Jared and Mike to also kind of preview the survey, so because I think they always have very good thoughts on these things as well. So the first one that I'll start with is proposal 1, county-led housing strategies. And this is not a specific legislative proposal, but it is the idea that CCAT would devote, resources and staff and so forth to staying really engaged in any discussion around housing matters at the state level. And so I'll just wait to hear from you all what you think, and I'm wondering if maybe Jared, the supervisor of our housing specialist, might have something to say about this.
I will go ahead and volunteer that. I think monitoring housing activity in both ways. The state making rules to push counties, municipalities to allow more housing, like zoning changes, those kind of things are very important to us. At the same time, looking at opportunities for funding and for to kind of advance those efforts is important. I think it goes without saying that we're actively watching the legislature for the most part. That's one of my focus areas, right? I mean, I watch generally for all county activities. I think CCI helps us to keep our finger on like big picture, all county efforts. And I think a focus on housing continues to be great. I do feel like it's been a fast and furious with housing since the passage of Proposition 123, right? Because we've been that ballot question passed. The state implemented a strategy. We found ways that was broken. So I do think anywhere where we can pay attention to it, it is important. My only comment would be what do they think they're adding to the conversation?
Yeah, I just made that note here. If we know that CCI is paying attention, I mean, I would like either CCI or CCAT, whichever is the most appropriate one to prioritize this. But I might ask, is this something that CCI is already doing, and would CCAT's efforts be redundant, or do we have a different perspective maybe than CCI?
And I was just gonna say, I don't know that CCAT's approach is significantly different than CCI is in this regard. And so that may be the lens to look through for some of these things. Is how is CCAT particularly poised to either push or pull on an item differently than CCI or other organizations.
Regardless of which organization, I think the greatest frustration that we've experienced at times are policies that are more aimed for urban municipal areas and not taking into consideration the challenges and different circumstances that rural communities have to implement these, to be eligible for statewide dollars. That often puts us at a disadvantage for competing with those more urban areas for those same dollars. So I wish it was more of an advocacy towards rural and small counties. As it pertains to housing policy and what additional flexibility they might add into some of these laws. Rather than we're gonna just jump on the bandwagon of pushing for more housing policy.
Mike, based on what you just said, it sounds like perhaps CAST would be a more appropriate organization to affect the rural resort changes that you
I mean, this
mentioned.
is talking a lot about advocacy on these policies at a statewide level. I would tend to agree with you. But it's beyond just the ski towns. Obviously, we are one, but we also represent a lot of frontier designation area in our county, and
I think CCI has that lens on, you know, because there are so many in terms of the number of counties that are rural. So I think this is a really good question. Is this because it is necessary for CCAT to prioritize as opposed to other? Lynn, you were gonna say something.
I was gonna say exactly what Mike just did, but probably not as eloquently. But yeah, just that real focus on rural counties and the hurdles that we really see with some of this policy set that is so inapplicable to rural counties, and we just have a lot of disadvantage with more metro focused policies. Even if counties are taken into consideration with housing initiatives, it seems to be very metropolitan focused, and that rural counties are just not considered in policy. So that would be one area of focus that I really would like CCI and or CCAT to focus on and bring to the legislator.
Okay, so let me just be clear how I might fill out the survey. Do you believe housing policy continue to be a priority? I'm gonna say other, you know, we're not sure, right? And then, whoops, after that. And I'll put in, explain our concern or questions. Potential. Okay, do we want it to be level 1 priority? I think we'd say maybe. And then which housing policy areas do you believe CCAT should prioritize exploring during the interim?
How about other? And then bring up the two concerns that we just voiced.
Okay.
I do
Heather?
think county land use and zoning is a high priority that I would include in the list with other. I don't know
Okay.
if you guys have other thoughts, but
I suppose the speed of implementation too, when they're saying that you have to do this within this time frame. I know that constituent outreach, at least in this county, is heavily prioritized. And oftentimes those timelines set by the state are not allowing that level of engagement. And then it creates the impression, but from some constituents, that we're just gonna try and steamroll, just not how we want it.
right.
So what would that be? That sounds like,
It's county land use and
That's-
zoning tools.
it's-
okay,
It is, and I would just add, I would mark off county authority related to housing. Continuing to. I guess remove barriers for counties to participate similar to how municipalities do. Are always things we want to keep at the forefront. So.
All right, that's question 6. And question 7 is an essay question where you can capture our comments.
okay, moving on to proposal 2, revenue diversification concepts. love to hear from you all about that, and we can talk more broadly first. Do you think that that is a high priority for CPAC?
I do think this is an area CCAT could focus on, given their political leaning, and there is a lot of resistance to the idea of more taxation from some of our more conservative leaning counties that CCI has a really loud voice for. And I think that CCAT might be able to tackle this in the way that could be potentially very useful for San Miguel County.
I agree with that. Anybody feel differently? And I do think, you know, I feel like our finances, like we've got good revenue flows here generally. My greatest concern is how are we gonna build housing? And I think for that function, that kind of new local government function or new county function, San Miguel County function, we do need to diversify our revenue sources. So I feel that I would mark this as an essential priority. It's not a high priority.
Yeah, and thinking around our mechanisms for potential tax collection and how, you know, how that will impact our local communities and thinking about funding streams that we might get creative in ways of bringing in some diversified funding streams in the future.
Question number 9 has a pretty good list of potential funding streams.
Yep.
The one that seems most linked to housing in my mind is either a real estate transfer tax or a vacant property tax.
What are our thoughts on the excise tax concept?
I really like it. I feel like it just gives a lot of flexibility to, I'm not sure that it would necessarily be, you would necessarily use it for housing. Although I did read in one of these documents that might be a way to levy a vacancy tax that's outside of the property tax, structure. So the 5 that kind of spoke to me as priorities, they asked 5 were, should I just run through them or do you want to discuss each one?
Run through.
Okay, excise tax, short-term rental reclassification, and when reading that, the detail on that. I want to point out that it wasn't reclassifying STRs as commercial, which was a previous proposal, which was resoundingly rejected by hospitality and real estate industries, but it would set up a separate category for that, so it would be somewhere in between residential and commercial. I think that's a really thoughtful kind of moderate position. So I have that one, vacant property tax, you've heard me talk about that, the real estate transfer tax or fee. And then I'm very interested also in the second to last one, required General Assembly Tabor constitutionality lawsuit. That's something that's been, oh, Jared's got something to say about that one. Anyway, those are the 5 that came to mind for me. Do believe in?
I agree with all of that, and I didn't dig into the short-term rental reclassification, and I had highlighted statewide revenue directed to counties. I don't know what that might look like and if that would be equally distributed or it would probably be population based. I don't know. It's questions around that.
Hang on 1 second, Jared, and we'll get you. I did read that, and my concern is that the state finances seem to be such a mess that I don't really want anything going through the state and having the legislature decide how that's allocated. I actually wrote no next to that one.
Well, that's great context, and I don't disagree with that. So, yeah.
All right, Jared, let's go.
Where to begin?
Exactly.
I wholeheartedly agree with your assertion about statewide revenue. My first read was every year they have a downturn,
Yeah.
it gets squeezed off.
Blood from a stone.
Right, every year that it's positive, and again, we've talked about this in previous years together, where we talk about how the state in good times, they play with their own money, and the state in bad times plays with ours. Right, and so I don't think linking us even tighter to statewide policy when we do have a rural and urban divide and an east and west slope divide and, you know, we've got a representative, a state rep that, you know, we don't see him too often at meetings. And so, you know, I don't see making those linkages as valuable for our county.
Okay, let's move on from that one. That's gonna be great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will go back to the top and talk about excise tax. I think
Yeah, please.
giving ourselves the ability to ask our voters for those linkages would be good. It would just be a really tough question of what exactly do we want to go after?
We'll worry about that later. If we
Yeah,
get the authority.
but I do think being able to link those things is valuable. Occupation tax, we've talked about that before. They have it in Denver. I don't know that it would bear a lot of fruit for our county, so I kind of said that one wasn't a high priority. The STR reclass would be, I think, a significant value to us.
Yep.
You know, being able to in some way harness that in a more meaningful way, also equalizing commercial lodging to STR,
Exactly.
right? Because there's been a complaint over a long time that STRs get to act like a hotel, but don't pay hotel rates, right? And so it's something that I think finding that equilibrium somewhere between the two could be a really good approach.
Jared, I have a question about this one, which came into my mind and then left my mind. Wait a second. Oh. Would we be able to potentially levy this yeah, I guess the short term, okay, no, it's a property tax, so this would hit all of our,
STRs.
yeah, and all of our STRs and also all of the, tax entities.
Correct.
Would be benefit everybody, not just the county.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm putting that down as
Yeah.
a priority.
Ultimately, that would increase our assessed value slightly by changing the assessment ratio for STR properties.
Got it.
By properties.
Okay, anybody disagree with that as one of our 5? No, Lance, you good?
I'm good.
Okay,
The services tax, I know we talked about this, I think last year, in pretty good detail. I know that it was a priority of, I think, Clear Creek County last year and Commissioner Harlan.
they wanted a recreational excise tax.
And
Or
I
makes this,
think it's
Yeah.
effectively the same thing.
That was my
but,
question, yeah.
But we talked about it at length and, you know, there might be some fruit there, but I don't know that we wanted to go chase it at this point.
Well, my question is, could we, if we had excise tax authority, could we levy it on a service, like it's broader than a service tax, right? Services tax.
I think an exercise, and Jared, correct me when I go wrong, is a good or a tangible, and a service is a occupation.
Right. And again, they use the example in excise of the, you know, tobacco tax. You're transacting a good.
Hang on a second, I'm reading the description. Excise tax authority would give counties ability to propose taxes on specific category of goods or services. For example, a single good, a category of goods, a single service, or a category of services.
If services can be included,
Yeah.
right? Because right now, services are not included in taxable definitions.
That's really important. Okay, let's
So
just,
I think that might be some nuance of the excise tax. Where if they write the excise tax in the correct way
yeah,
to include services,
yeah.
right? It makes a services tax superfluous.
Well, this proposal is very explicit, the one that CCAT has offered that includes services. And it says services such as recreational, Clear Creek County, or luxury services, so. I feel like services tax is more narrow, that we should focus on something broader that gives all counties maximum flexibility. We're getting snacks. Okay, is that okay? So I'll not.
Yeah.
Check services, okay, great. Vacant property tax, and we all agree, is something to look at, Jared has it?
Well, I I know I play devil's advocate at work professionally. Vacant property is already taxed at commercial rate. And so my question is, what more?
Oh.
No, this
it's-
is different.
It is,
This
it's not.
This is a vacancy tax, not a
Yes.
vacant land tax.
They can see.
And I wish that we were reframing this differently, like Utah does it. That allows for an abatement to be given to full-time residents.
Yes, I like that.
Rather than saying we want to tax non-primary homes at a higher rate.
Yes.
Yep,
I mean, bring that proposal to CCAT.
yeah, I will.
Option for this.
Requires a change to the Constitution, so.
Sure, but the Constitution,
But
I,
But I think,
arguably needs to be cleaned up. And that's step one, right?
well, with that reframing and reading a little further, because I just read vacant property tax, I'm like, oh, we already have that.
yeah,
Yeah,
But with that and knowing about the Utah example, I think that would go very well together and fit very nicely with the STR reclass
Mhm.
as well, right? Those two things pulled together would be a
it
good
could be a single issue though, a ballot question.
for the constitutional question.
Right. So
And
that's-
the state legislature would have the flexibility.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay, moving on. This is good stuff. Real estate transfer tax or fee, anything to add there?
I think it's just a good idea that we should have the ability to do.
Okay, unincorporated sales tax. I was less interested in that.
Agreed.
Okay, we don't have much going on there, okay. Eliminate or modify the statutory growth cap, this one, and this came to my mind. Even before I read the summary, is that's just gonna reactivate the anti-tax people, Advanced Colorado or whatever they're called.
All of this may reactivate them.
Well, do you feel like that's something we should work on?
I think we've started working on it. I did note in their comments, they said that no county has undone these restrictions yet, and I'm like. We kind of have on certain pieces of our revenue.
You can ask,
Right.
you can still ask your voters to override.
And so we have the ability
To do it
locally
anyway,
already to remove ourselves, so. That's not as much of big legislative
Very
priority,
good point.
unless they were doing away with it forever.
Very good, okay, we talked about statewide revenue, okay, you wanna talk about the Tabor constitutionality lawsuit, this has come up before. And basically, there's a theory or a point of view in the state that Tabor is unconstitutional. Or I can't remember why.
Because it limits our ability to
Yeah.
actually have representative
Government, okay, represent, that's right.
or a Republican form of. our
Legislature should be able to.
Yeah, and not, to be constrained by the Constitution. So, thank you. So, it didn't, the last time it was proposed was 2025. It doesn't say why it died. But I think that would be really helpful.
I remember saying, I think I was sitting in this seat. As a nerd of government function, this would be awesome. I love it, right? So the nerd part of me has been waiting for this lawsuit as long as I've known about Tabor. But I do think. To what end? Right, the state getting allowance to act outside of Tabor may relieve some of the county's other burdens for, human services, health, those kind of things. I think those, ultimately, it's good. I think it is a bit of goose juice. I think there's gonna be a lot of effort that goes into it.
When people learn that the state and potentially local governments would not have to go to the voters for a tax increase.
They won't
There
like it.
will be pitchforks sharpened and torches lit.
I think what I hear Mike and Jared saying is we should pick our battles and to send CCAT into this almost unwinnable fight and spend time and energy on it. Seems foolish.
Thank you. So, is there, fee authority?
Yes, please.
Oh, yeah, that was one you.
That's the one that I proposed in different words. Yes.
Okay,
We get our five?
That's right.
Great, we're good.
Okay, and so we just need your weigh in on question 8, which is this essential if or high priority? I would like to say essential, and that's, you guys feel different.
Sure.
Okay, and then which concepts do you currently have significant questions about?
All of them that we just ticked.
Okay, that's fair, yeah. And I've been making notes on your thoughts. Are there any revenue concepts that we should not pursue? Okay, yes, we don't want to pursue the eliminate or modify the statutory growth cap. We don't want to do the statewide revenues or the constitutionality lawsuit. Anything else we don't want to pursue?
Occupational tax, student.
And the services tax, so we'll just pick the ones we didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, the opposite, okay, great. Proposal 3, defining autopsy reports and standardizing the release requirements. I actually emailed our coroner, and let me just see if I've heard back from him. I have not. What I would recommend here is that I wait to hear back from Emil and take his direction on this.
Great.
You guys good about that?
Yes.
Okay. Any staff, you agree?
Yes.
Okay. Concept 4, legislative reform for accurate county fiscal impact reporting. Let's see. Oh, okay, so this requires that when a fiscal note is developed for a legislative proposal or bill, meaning they quantify how much it would cost somebody or, to do it, to execute the legislation, that they are very conscientious about doing the analysis for the impact on counties. Right now, evidently, they say things like, minimal or indeterminate, they kind of gloss over that, so I think this is, a good idea.
Sure.
Jared, what do you think?
I used to write this, so I recognize the challenge and I want them to be as accurate as possible. I know in my time writing them, I wrote them to be as accurate as I possibly could. You can imagine that if I'm just gonna be paint picking. I'm being asked to summarize the fiscal impact on all 64 counties within the next week.
It's that fast?
Yes. The legislative session is only in their pressure cooker of 120 days, right? They're all introducing 5 bills and you've got to evaluate every single one. And so, again, I think it's laudable to want accuracy, and I think the current staff are working towards accuracy. That's probably not satisfactory to Larimer County nor anybody.
Right, I mean, I think
Yeah.
what I hear at CCI and CCAD is unfunded mandate, and I think this calls attention to that concern, and they may have to craft the specific bill to make allowances for time, but it's just, I think the point needs to be made that county costs need to be considered as much as county. So now I'm trying to look at this, how familiar were you with the proposal before? I'll just, whatever, I'll figure it out. Okay. Where do you believe your county is today regarding this proposal? Are we ready to support it as a level 1? Maybe not our highest priority. What do you all think?
I think that it's not our highest priority.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think the way that Jared explained the process, it's gonna be incumbent on counties to do the math anyways.
Right.
So
Okay.
amount of time to try to codify something that's still gonna be
Okay.
shady.
And then the rest, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think at best, a mandate from the state would do one of 2 things. It would either be ineffective or it would make the counties do the reporting, right? So, and again, I'm trying to think of, is there a lot of there? And to me, the goal of this is to get the state legislature to not monkey around with county finances as much. I don't know that this method is going to be the trick, so to speak.
Okay.
So I just I think it's a great idea, it's just not, I don't think there's a lot of there.
Okay, so for the question. 20, I guess we don't want it to be a level 1 priority. And I'll say we'll do that one there. And then the question is for 21, would we oppose it or somewhat oppose it?
We landed somewhat close.
Yeah,
Sure.
Up
We're
to
trying
you
to help,
guys.
we're trying to help them prioritize.
exactly, Lance, exactly,
So
okay,
we have to oppose or someone oppose something.
okay. All right, community level wildfire hardening, this is proposal 5, it came from Pitkin County. And it's basically suggesting or proposing that the state develop a program for funding wildfire resilience technology. So what comes to mind for me is like the panel cameras. And let's see, I think that, well, does anybody want to speak to that, or do you want to hear my opinion first? Okay, I feel like, given the varying levels of county wealth, and that may not correlate to risk, i.e. some of the more wildfire risk counties have less money. And the fact that those wildfires impact all of us, I think this is a great idea.
Rock on.
Anybody disagree? Okay. So I'm gonna say I think that should be level 1, I mean, is that okay with you, top priority? And would we strongly support it?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
I agree with that, and we're even seeing, within our county here with the varying fire districts there and their revenue variances, that the Telluride Fire Protection District has more funding available to pay for Pano cameras, whereas the Norwood Fire Protection District has been reaching out to try to find funding for such a thing, so it would create equilibrium throughout the state.
Yeah, I like that, okay.
Fire districts, yeah.
Perfect, okay, proposal 6, mobile home park purchase timelines, Pitkin County. This allows more time for either, municipalities, counties, and or residents to make an offer on a mobile home park when it goes up for sale. It's not particularly relevant to us, right? So I don't wanna, I think we'll just say it's a low priority, right?
Correct.
Okay. Number 7, refinements to county commissioner election reform. This is another thing that isn't particularly relevant to us. It's only for counties greater than 70,000. It has to do with whether there's direct or at-large elections. So I think I'm just gonna say that's still a priority for us. And then it says, thank you. So that's great. Thanks. Thank you. I am turning my attention quickly to this excise tax bill. I don't know if anybody else looked at it. It's kind of ahead of, it's really far ahead of when it needs to be, written and submitted. The issue that I read here or picked up on here is that it's approved by a majority of the registered electors of the county. But it's possible that the tax itself would only be levied on a specified portion of the county. So I find that tricky, right? Because, there could be a proposal to tax down Valley and the whole county would be voting on it. It seems like it doesn't really make sense. That doesn't line up for me. Did anyone else have that concern?
I did, yeah, that was first off confusing to me, and also I'm just not sure how that would mechanically work.
Yeah,
And also be perceived as fair, right?
yeah, but the issue is like you'd have to create a special taxing district or something if you wanted just those voters to vote on it. Seems a little convoluted.
But I could see how that would be potentially applicable in San Miguel County, where we would potentially want an excise tax in a certain portion of the county, maybe not all the county, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't say I have an opinion on that right now, but
Yeah. Jerry, do you have a thought?
I think ultimately, this is where I think it's a good draft and this is what the feedback they need.
Yes.
Is there needs to be the clarity or the direction, or at least the question gets answered, because I think there are some other statutory and constitutional provisions that may actually limit that. It's why we have to draw boundaries.
Yeah.
To do smart and have them receive tax as an example, or others. So I think there may be other pieces of statute and state constitution that would control for that.
Okay.
But it is a question that should be asked. and
Okay,
answered.
maybe they need to make a reference
Right.
to that other, okay, and then. It also does not require, and maybe this is okay, but that. When voters approve this excise tax, that they have to that the ballot measure has to specify the use. It says it can use for any purpose determined by the governing body of the county, which is sort of. Anti-Tabor, but how do y'all feel about that? They're not, yeah, it's like. Tabor says you have to say what the money's gonna be used for. Oh, you don't? Well, look at mine's going like this, Jared's going.
I mean, Tabor says. You have to ask for a tax increase. It does not prescribe
Okay,
that you have to assign the use.
okay,
Now, for fees, absolutely, fees
Okay.
have to be kind of connected to the service, right?
Okay.
But, and so that's where I think they're marrying this excise language to the existing sales tax
Okay.
statutes.
yeah,
And so I think that there's some outgrowth of that that's happening
okay,
here.
I'm okay with that then, unless
Yeah.
you all have a concern.
I think we have known that. General sales use excise tax questions probably won't pass if you don't
Exactly.
assign it to a particular purpose.
Right,
You know, I
but
don't
this
think.
doesn't prohibit us from doing that.
Correct.
Okay, okay. Then the other thing is, it says that the Department of Revenue will not collect this tax. And so my question is, do we have a mechanism in the county for collecting it if the Department of Revenue won't do it for us?
So we would have to stand one up.
Yeah,
And so just to give you a sense. That is speaking directly to an objection from the State Department of Revenue.
right,
Cause they kind of are like, hey. We're collecting sales and use taxes today. We don't want more, right? And we don't want more nuance and we don't want. The 64 county differences, let
Right.
alone the municipal differences. So they're kind of asking counties by that, if you want an excise tax.
Right.
You have to be like the municipalities that collect it yourself and be your own.
so the
right?
municipalities collect their own. that's
Home
right.
rule municipalities collect their own
Is
sales
this, would
taxes.
this be prohibitive, do you think, for us to collect it ourselves?
We would just need to make sure that whatever new revenue we would receive would support. Kind of standing up. A department to collect that tax is maintained, so.
Would we prefer that it not include this section? I think we would, right?
If we could get them to do our business, right? I don't think it's very palatable to say, hey, Department of Revenue. Keep collecting and collect more, right?
But that's their job.
It is, but their retort is, why can't you do it?
Because counties don't already have that function. Right?
Yeah.
I might pose it as a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, they asked if we have an opinion about procedure for dispute resolution. I don't care about that yet, right at this point. Does anybody else?
Arbitration.
Is that what you should say?
What are your thoughts on that, Maura?
Dispute resolution.
Not arbitration.
Oh,
Yeah, if it's non-binding, that's fine, I guess, better than binding.
do we have a point of view on this at this point, or is it too early?
I'd say great draft. We're interested to see how it goes.
Okay, no, I have opinions, but I mean on the dispute resolution
Oh.
part, it doesn't sound like anything. That's all I had. Anybody else have thoughts on this? No? I'll write it back to the Representative Joseph with those thoughts. All right, that's the end of that piece. 7D.
Well done.
Thank you very much. Now let me get a snack.
All right, your turn. Commissioners, we are moving on to item 8A, which is discussion with Star Jameson. Natural resources. And climate resilience and general keep the earth intact specialist. And she has several letters. First one's the Bureau of Land Management, Oil and Gas Fuel sign-on letter. Hi, Star.
Hello, commissioners. Notes. I received this opportunity to have the elected officials sign on to the BLM oil and gas rule. And this letter involves commenting on how this rule will limit public engagement, shifting the cleanup to the taxpayers, eliminating preference criteria, reducing lease application fees, eliminating surface owner notification requirements. This would be a simple sign-on that I could do for the commissioners. If you all agree you would like to do this. We also would have the opportunity to write our own comment letter, if we wish to include some of these topics and feel it's important. And that letter would be due August 24th of next month. So we could do both, or we could do one.
You feel writing our own letter would be that much more effective, and worth your time and energy there?
They typically, I think when I looked at the grazing comments, when we submitted that one, they had received like 1,000 letters. We do have oil and gas leases in San Miguel County. It is of interest to us. Yeah, it could possibly, and we already have a good start with topics that we would include in there, and could keep it short with that. And if there's, I could look into also some financial pieces of that with our history of oil and gas leasing and the current process of bankruptcy, etc. I could also look into that and see if the rule addresses any of that to add as well.
All that time, and I have no doubt it would be a better letter, more specific to us, but do you think it would register in a different way at the, with the decision makers, or are they just counting in favor or opposed letters?
I'm not sure what this administration is doing, honestly. I don't know that I could honestly answer how impactful these letters truly are, going into the Federal Register.
So much of your time and energy into these responses, Star, which is so important and appreciated. But I have concerns around the amount of energy and input you're putting forward, and is it landing on deaf ears? Does it matter? I mean, of course, these are fundamental concerns I have, I believe this body has as a whole. And I'm just trying to weigh, like, how much effort do we put forward? How much of your effort is put forward, and how effectual is it?
So I remember when this administration started, we were all feeling overwhelmed by the number of issues that we wanted to speak to. And remember, we started off writing letters to all, Hurd and Hickenlooper and Bennett. And at one point, and maybe someone can help me refine my memory here, we said we had to pull back on that because we didn't think it was that effective, and we only have so much bandwidth. So I think you guys are nodding.
That was about a year ago, and
Mhm.
Star and I discussed, let's focus on just the highest priority ones, and
Mhm.
instead of writing a 10-page letter, let's do a 1-page letter to just put us on the record as opposing. And where we can find alignment with other counties, especially counties that might be politically different than ours, and in agreement, such as the Dolores River stuff, we said, let's focus our energies there. After receiving that feedback from Congressman Hurd's office, that those are the only letters that his office pays attention to.
I forgot about them.
I have a suggestion for this letter. I've already signed it individually. I'm happy to ask the board if they'd care to join me. I don't think Star needs to write our own letter.
Yeah,
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Great. So Star, go ahead and sign on for us for the Western Leaders letter, please.
Okay, great.
So is Star gonna sign for each of us individually or?
You can tick the box.
I can sign for the BOCC
As a,
in full as a group.
Okay, and then there's no point in us also doing it individually.
correct.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I think that was a good decision.
Okay, and our second is to provide a letter of support to the Southwest Conservation District Conservation Infrastructure Partnership for domestic water supply. I just wanted to add in on this. I talked to Adrian because he's been part of these conversations with San Miguel Watershed Coalition. And he and I have also just been discussing a drought plan for San Miguel County. And I asked how this, because they're applying to the Department of Reclamation, which is also a grant that I've looked into for drought planning. And he said that this is specifically for domestic water supply and that there still is a need for agriculture and for recreation, et cetera. But fully supported this, and I went ahead and drafted a letter because I think this is a great opportunity to have to understand wells and to understand the water supply in the county, and possibly looking at drought for agriculture, et cetera, like at a later time, see what comes out of these meetings, because I think people are going into planning fatigue, let's just say, in stakeholder meetings. So him representing and thinking about drought on a larger scale when he goes to these meetings and look at the gaps and potentially look later on for another bigger drought plan for what's missing out of this one that we would be supporting here.
Does anyone oppose sending this letter?
Oh.
No.
Is that needed, a motion?
Yes, please.
Yes.
I move that we approve the chair's signature on a letter of support for Southwest Colorado Domestic Water Drought Resilience Assessment and Decision Support Tool. This is funding opportunity number R26AS00016.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I as well.
Thank you. And I just had a few updates for you all. I held 2 stakeholder meetings for our compost and biochar feasibility study just in the last week. We are working with a contractor, and I cannot tell you how lucky we are that we got this contractor, and this was through the state through a grant. So it was a free opportunity for us to get this feasibility study. She is in Chaffee County, and she started her own composting business. And she's also the sustainability coordinator for Chaffee County. So she's learning as well, and has been wonderful to work with. So at these meetings, we wanted attendance from the towns, Bruin Waste, et cetera, to make sure we're capturing all the needs in the county. John Wachowski shared with us Ophir's composting program, and Bruin Waste attended on Monday. And he's been moving forward with composting consideration of small facilities in the county, in the region. And he really thinks it's important that we consider something in the West End with agriculture and such. So with our alternatives, we're looking at a small scale distributed process facility, such as like the small rocket composters like Ophir has, a local processing facility such as a transfer station receiving organics, that are processed on site, and alternative 3, which is local collection and haul to an external compost facility such as Delta Compost. Bruin Waste also mentioned that they are looking at construction and waste diversion program, which was going to be our next feasibility study, and they're looking into it at their Ilium site, and they're looking at having specific bins for construction, such as metal and construction diversion program, which was great. And they are hiring a sustainability coordinator, which is wonderful. And he didn't announce when or who that was, but sounds like it's soon, and they have someone possibly in mind and are waiting for that. Go ahead. Okay. I submitted yesterday the CPW RPI grant. This is for a regional partnership, bringing together nonprofit organization, local government, and user groups to formalize our current recreation collaborative. I applied for $40,562 for a facilitator, and 10% staff time is in-kind match with that. A facilitator would not only formalize the group, but also provide a blueprint and a strategic plan for all the groups. So we would take all of our plans that we currently have. I'm really hoping like our natural resource plan could get some really good feedback from this group and finalize that. But take all of our plans and prioritize like the top 10. We all work on so many different projects, and this facilitator would take all of our plans, bring them together, and prioritize like a list of 10 projects we could all work on: drought, conservation projects, recreation trails, etc. The State Land Board, I sent out a brief update on the meeting that I attended 2 weeks ago with the commission in Mountain Village. And I didn't receive feedback on the parcels that we had submitted for the recreation conservation program. And I did receive a message back from Tim Brass, who is our contact person for this process. And he said, "Thanks for getting back to me. We are in the process of finalizing the report for the working group, which is due in September. One of the recommendations is there for the State Land Board staff to follow up conversations regarding parcel nominations from the regional partnership and counties. Assuming these recommendation is retained in the final report, I suspect follow-up will be happening soon thereafter. In the meantime, I'll make sure that they are all aware of your follow-up note." So it sounds like in the fall, then we will be contacted October-ish regarding those nominations. I had a meeting with Sampa regarding power line and vegetation removal. They have a forester on their staff who analyzes, prioritizes, and works with private landowners. They mentioned the 1,600 miles of line that they have and how much, they have to cover, and then figure out and prioritize those lines. I contacted the Forest Service and the BLM.
Okay, keep on. I have a question about this whole thing once you're done.
Yeah, I contacted the Forest Service and the BLM trying to facilitate. I do know that, Sampa is responsible for their own right-of-ways. And I haven't heard back from the Forest Service, which I was supposed to have a meeting with them tomorrow for the Suffer project, which just got canceled today because of the flash flooding, etc. But BLM responded, has put me in contact with the realty specialist at the BLM, and I'm connecting them with Sampa. And the BLM also reminded me that from Placerville up sections of the river are part of an ACEC. So putting an access road in there might be kind of an issue in some of those areas. So TBD on those conversations. And I've connected him with Wiley. And with that, last night I went to Jason Seibold's presentation. Not only did he present, which many of you have heard with the Bear Creek study that he's been doing for 10 years, he did a forest health, like landscape wide presentation on the beetle kill, tree mortality, warming, weather trends. And then he spent about 3/4 of the time talking about wildfire. Jason also has the Firebird modeling. He showed last night where he had modeled a campfire in Palisade, California. In some of our discussions, I had asked him like, have you like modeled some of these? Have you proven this to be a reliable source in your is Firebird accurate in your modeling? And so he had did that and come up and showed last night all the modeling that he did with that, and it being like down to the pull of actually which one failed, and looking at wind events and what are the risks for each pull. Well, he has gotten Xcel Energy excited about this and potentially looking into modeling for them. And so I've been in contact already with Wiley, just looking at Sampa and potentially that being an option for risk assessment for their power lines. I've also attended the Mountain Town 2030 Wildfire Series 1 and 2. I think I've provided those notes to all of you, and if I haven't, then please let me know. But these meetings have been really informative, just showing the collaborative that exists in Truckee, California, all the work that they're doing. Basically, they have said that the most important thing is looking at your risk assessment. What they've done, they have cameras, they have a CWPP, they've gone beyond, they use a company to do modeling to determine risk assessment for their mitigation projects. Last night, Rodney was talking about his projects up in Mountain Village and just the cost per acre of those and how prioritizing can be really important for that. And so that was the take home from the wildfire series, are the challenges that they've had working with their fire districts, and basically how they've prioritized. I am looking into and starting the application for the Natural Disaster Mitigation Enterprise Grant. We can apply for up to $900,000. What I need to do is look at the acreage, because I think that would determine, because if we're looking at roadside treatments and possibly water treatment, or the water needs that we have through our CWPP, the funding will be based off of that budget sheet. So I'm still looking into how many acreage and miles that we have that need to be treated to really get down to that. And that grant, I've seen two different dates. One was August 13th, and I recently saw one that was at the end of August. So I need to confirm that.
It'd be huge.
Yeah, and still meet with Shannon when he's available, because I'm taking that grant and identifying parts where I need answers from certain people. And thank you, Mike, for jumping in there and answering some of those questions. I just mentioned I was supposed to meet for the Suffer project, and that has been canceled. Still working with the application team for the Dark Sky application, and I will complete the letter to Herd now tomorrow, since I am not going to Norwood for the field trip. So I will have that ready to go tomorrow, the letter of Herd that was approved last week. Any questions? That is public lands, and yeah.
I have a question, Star. You've mentioned that you described to us how you've been in contact with Wiley and Sampa.
Mhm.
And as I remember, that conversation might have been instigated by the letter from the Down Valley resident
Mhm.
about the cottonwoods along Highway 145. And as I recall, we figured out that those are really the responsibility of CDOT, but maybe also Sampa, is that right?
Mhm.
And have you learned anything more about their, more specifically, I guess, about either CDOT or Sampa's point of view on those cottonwoods?
That's what I'm just looking at it a little bit deeper, and
Yeah.
I'm asking for access for GIS files, because it's easier to like show and explain to these different people, like looking at the parcel data, to understand who actually like owns
Yeah.
the land. And I had to submit a request for the GIS data. They don't just give that out. And so I included Heather on that. that they have to give me that data. So step one, Sampa.
Okay.
They have the GIS data. In the meeting, they were showing me, and we were going through parcel by parcel to see like who owned what, where there are. It's not just cottonwoods, there's dead trees
Yeah.
and such. And some of those lines, what I've seen from just like zooming in, not having the files, I mean, it's laden with, you know, trees that are potential to fall onto these power lines. Cottonwood, we've heard, you know, that they don't prioritize. I think West Region had said that they don't prioritize those in removal, but they're also a hazard to fall on a line. So I haven't talked to CDOT. I still need to get a contact for them, but I really want to have the distribution line laid out to understand whose property is who that we're talking about, where the real issues are in that whole area.
This is great. I hear what
Yeah.
you're saying. You're kind of bringing it on a level and looking at the bigger picture rather than just cottonwoods on Highway 145.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Star, I was hoping you could also touch on, you gave a great synopsis of the compost meetings, which I attended the second one this Monday, but could you touch on the biochar feasibility and just also thinking about tree removal? And we have, both Star and I have heard from local arborists about they're having concerns and issues around where they're disposing their green material, all of their limbs and trees. And I also heard from some Ophir residents around concerns about some of the arborists that operate in the Ophir Valley, where there's just these piles of wood chips at this point accumulating on those laydown yards. And so Star has been digging into the feasibility of potentially purchasing an air curtain burner but I learned something at that meeting about the feasibility study and where we've kind of landed there. And then what Rob from Bruin Waste shared about their concept about green waste collection and really so much on that.
Sorry, I just jumped right past that. So that has been, the biochar study has been in the draft form and it's almost complete, but we really need more data on the amount of wood that we could receive. So Julie's still trying to connect with people to understand that. And I got information from the one contractor that had reached out to us and like how much wood that they would be bringing into a site and their needs. At that meeting, Bruin said, oh, okay, so there's a need for green waste. I've also talked to Rodney and Lauren in Mountain Village about C3 has grants that we could apply for that are under 50,000. They already have a drop-off site up there. The contractors, mostly the contractors are working up there, drop off there, and they have a limited space. So I suggested maybe after talking to Delta Compost, who has a very large tub grinder, that we could hire them to come in and more often, if we can find these sites, come in and create wood chips. So we wouldn't need as much space if we had more often a chipper coming in and doing it. With that, they could take away the wood chips and it would go into compost. That was part of the biochar study, was that people are hesitant about the kilns because it's a 24-hour process, staffing time, etc. Maintenance of a large air curtain burner is expensive. And then bringing those to the site.
Are those portable? Like, is it something, I'm just wondering if some private enterprise might buy one and move around the western slope or, the mountain regions and provide that service.
Montrose County purchased one, and I reached out to them and didn't hear back, and I think that they had a change of staff from the person that I contacted just to see how it's going. But I agree, and I've actually talked to a contractor about that before, about that being like a private business, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I'll provide the biochar report to you all and you can see, the cost. It's down to the large air curtain burner, down to the small kilns, staff time, those costs, it's all laid out in there, you know, what that would look like. For now, it really seems that providing a space and chipping and using these chips into compost or mine tailings is probably the best for us right now, to get those wood chips into compost and then back on the ground for like agriculture or some other use. For now, that seems to be more of an immediate thing that we could do until we could, I mean, there are grants, we could get kilns, we could do all of that, but the long-term financial piece of that, I would be worried about staffing and such.
Okay. And do we have a physical space where we could potentially gather green waste and have that chipper?
I asked Bruin about Ilium. I believe we have the Norwood transfer station could potentially be a spot
Does
up
Bruin
here.
have space in Ilium?
I'm trying to get a confirmation with them to do a pilot to specifically work with the contractors. So they would have, whoever wanted to do this, it would be a contractor specific program because it's locked, it's a gate, they don't want contamination. And so having this like working with the contractor specifically is the solution that they would prefer for using their land for something like this. Yeah. Yeah. And this is just a conversation on Monday that we had, and I'm following up with, I had told Commissioner Gleason yesterday afternoon that I wanted to follow up with Rob with those conversations and just say, how committed are you to this and how can we help? And could some of these dollars, if we apply for this small grant, you know, serve this project with the tub grinder, and how could we help with that? So,
Is it Bruin?
pardon me,
Rob,
Rob,
is it
yes, yes. Did you have?
I was just gonna mention, to answer your question super clearly, Bruin does lease space immediately west of the jail for a transfer station. It used to be Waste Management, they assumed that lease.
Right, but they have concerns in potentially opening a green waste dump site to the public because of traffic congestion and like Star was saying, contamination. But I feel it would be a big step towards addressing this. And yeah, he sounded optimistic about it.
I'm not aware of this, but maybe Mike knows that, someone had mentioned where we have a Christmas tree drop off.
Down at the church campsite in Ilium.
So that's private land that we use for that?
I think it's the county-owned parking lot on the trailhead.
It's a portion of that parking lot. That's why there's a delineation in the parking lot, not the entirety of the parking lot, but a portion of it. And that's where we have the trees, and then we bring in the chipper. We chip all those trees. It's only for a specified window of about 3 weeks.
I don't think that space is big enough for what we're talking about.
No, nor would, you know. I mean, we have a consideration, smell noise, other things, closer yard residential. I understand that portion is not currently really used other than the one residence, it's a residential area.
We could do a one-time event too, for private homeowners.
I
Okay.
like where you're going. With all that.
Was that? Did that answer all your questions?
Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to paint, you know, just bring everybody fully up to speed. Star's been doing a ton of work on this, and I left that meeting on Monday feeling more optimistic than I have about the compost initiative and, you know, the potentiality of
processing compost in the county, I've had real concerns about it's being hauled all the way to Delta, and it's questioned the efficacy of all of that. So STAR's been really digging into figuring out a more localized solution. And to just engage more residents and businesses with composting and waste diversion in general.
All right.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for your time.
Thank you, Star.
Yeah. And I'll send the biochar study to everyone as well. I'll share that.
All right, onward to manager matters with Mike Bordonia and Jared Biggs.
Like the lecture.
Just a few things to move ahead with. We had a great SSR meeting last week. I think I mentioned that last week, but we have another one next Monday. Bonus meeting. Next Monday, 7/27. We
9
will be
o'clock.
What time?
9 o'clock in
o'clock.
this very room.
in this very room. So we had a lot of great discussion again, and we will be hopefully continuing to narrow our focus on some of these density adjustments, as you can imagine.
Jared, the meeting room is I'm not seeing it on the county calendar reserved for that meeting, but I am seeing an all staff meeting on the 27th, starting at 8:45. Does that meeting happen here?
No, that's online.
Great, thank you,
That's
Mike.
every Monday morning.
Appreciate it.
And I do see it just on the 27th, SSR 9 AM on this room calendar. So
Okay.
maybe we can,
I think it's on the room calendar.
we will. Oh,
That's where are you sure you're?
It's on.
Updates are.
It's on the room calendar.
Seeing it?
Yes, ma'am. It's in red.
we will. We'll figure
Oh,
that
that's a me
problem.
problem.
That's an offline.
That's a me problem.
Let's fix that.
Yeah.
But we do have that. Drea, myself, and I believe Ryan may be participating in a Deep Creek Housing Project design charrette on Friday. With our team that we selected for this project. So they are gonna be on site. We're gonna walk the site. We're gonna talk about what we need, talk about what CDOT needs. We do have representatives from CDOT in attendance for that as well. So happy to see that project moving ahead. Commissioner Waring overheard this morning. We also have pump testing at the San Bernardo HOA on Friday, and it starts. So that very long in the effort kind of pump testing is actually going to start taking place this Friday through next Wednesday. And we want to just continue to express our appreciation of San Bernardo HOA because they've been very gracious. They have been storing water this week, so they ensure they have supply while we're kind of doing pump tests. So we really appreciate them working with us on that project. I did want to let the commissioners know the planning director job posting is going out today. And we are looking at some dates at the end of August. And I wanted to see if you all wanted to draw straws to have one commissioner participate on that hiring panel.
And was that a scratch or was that a
Oh,
nose?
you know what? No, I'm kind of interested in that, but I didn't, yeah.
One of you should probably be interested
Right.
because I doubt that I'm gonna have the luxury of working very long with that new employee. So,
I would absolutely be open and willing, however, the end of August isn't gonna align with my schedule, so if you're
I'm
open
in.
and willing, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I will include you, Commissioner Brown.
Just to let you know, though, I'm out the week of the 17th, so is that okay?
I believe that will be okay.
I'll be back the week
Yeah.
of the 24th.
Yeah, we're going to be aiming at potential interviews the end of the week of the 24th.
That sounds great. So then mark my calendar.
But I may ask you to review some resumes ahead of time, if you can do that
Absolutely.
remotely.
Absolutely, yep.
So that is going out. Super excited to get that moving ahead, but also a little wistful that, our time with Kay is starting to be numbered, so.
Bittersweet.
Additionally, we've got, I did want to mention at the last meeting, I committed to having a discussion of SMRHA and SMCHA continuing qualifications, AKA compliance.
Wait, that was too many acronyms. Start one more time.
SMRHA and the County Housing Authority.
Yeah, yeah,
Compliance process.
yes, exactly.
Giving a summary of that on 8/5, August 5th. I would like to rescind that
Oh, wait, yeah.
because I will be out of the office on that day. And so I'm looking at the following week if that is doable. I believe Lance may be out or remote on that day, if I recall correctly.
That's fine.
You okay with that? I
Yes, sir.
didn't want to make that change. I know we said it in the meeting, so.
But didn't we want to make sure you were able to attend that meeting one way or the other, because you're on the board and you're like closest to all of that?
If
So maybe
we
we-
want to guarantee that, then we shouldn't schedule it for our August 10th, 9th meeting.
Or, I'm sorry, 19th?
19th could work. Hold one.
But then I think you were out at that point.
I can zoom in on that meeting though.
So it should be fine.
And so Jared, and how did you characterize that meeting as? Or as just a presentation or?
Yeah, it's just kind of setting, level set, setting the expectations for the continuing qualification process that will come in October and kind of starting the conversation with a common understanding of how this process has worked
Okay,
and
good.
what might need, because I know we've heard through our process that we did with the reversions that a lot of the problems folks had were not with their deed restriction, but with how the deed restriction was administered through the compliance procedure. And so we want to start with, here's how the compliance procedure has worked.
Right.
And then we can identify what may be broken or not.
And, oh my goodness, here we go. Would you be able at that time, especially with the 19th, to make some suggestions for any tweaks that you and or Pam or anybody else thinks need to be made, so we could actually start to chew on it?
I do know that Pam has been queuing up items that she thinks need to be tweaked. Obviously, they went through the compliance procedures with Town of Telluride, so there is a little bit of a juxtaposition between the two methods. But we can, with that additional time, I'm sure we can come up with a short list of things that staff think are working, not working.
Oh, great, and then there would be an opportunity during that May meeting for commissioners to kind of reflect and ask questions and
Yeah.
make suggestions.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
So I will re-pencil that in for 8/19. And we will proceed with that path. And then. Let's see, that one. I keep a track on I. The only other thing is ballots. Ballot questions. So there is we got a question from the county clerk, Mr. Brzezinski. If the county itself wanted to ask any ballot questions this year, our deadline for ballot question, for giving him the ballot questions we would like to ask is, I think we need to at least give him notice by the first week of August, if I recall, and then we have to develop that ballot question language by, I think, the first or second week of September, just roughly. So wanted to at least put it out there that we don't need an answer today, but if there is any desire that we're gonna need to at least notify the clerk and recorder's office in the next couple of weeks.
And is anything on anyone's mind so far? No? Not really.
Yeah. There are
Definitely not a tax increase.
the tax increase.
Well, it isn't a close the book, but I wanted to at least put that on radar. And that is all I had. Sure, I could bore you with more if you like. And happy it's. Okay, I guess.
Not much.
And then just sorry to, next Wednesday, we've got the joint CPC meeting
Correct.
during our regularly scheduled work session to talk about the
Housing code
housing
updates.
code updates.
That come out of our meeting on Monday.
Will that be the only agenda item or that is?
That is the only thing on the agenda as of now.
Okay. I'm supposed to, I will be driving to Steamboat that day for the CCAT conference, and so. Does anybody have a sense of how long that might run?
Starting at 9:30 question mark?
Yes.
Commissioner time, not
Correct.
CPC time, okay.
What?
7, 9.
9.
9, okay, there's some confusion about that. So let's send out a APB and make sure everybody shows up at 9. And I can't imagine it will take any more than 3 hours, and I'm hoping for 2.
Okay, thank you. That's great.
It is agenda.
Thank you.
Stop, let the planning staff. Set meeting terms.
All right, so it's 9 a.m. So as we said, okay, I'll plan to be here till 12. Great.
And I'll do my best to get us done early.
So hold on.
Brilliant.
Zip it. No, that's good.
Shall we go?
Yes, please.
Just a couple quick updates. First off, like to thank the public as well as our San Miguel County staff for putting on a successful fair. San Miguel Days Fair event and Commissioner Gleason's good efforts. I learned after the fact that not only did you purchase the county a pig, which will go to the benefit of our food banks primarily. And we're thankful for that, but then she also purchased her own swine to support the youth of San Miguel and Montrose counties in that effort. Last night, as Jared and I have been dividing and conquering over some of the parks and open space areas, I know he attended the Historic Preservation Commission meeting. It's coming Monday night. I will be attending and participating in the Open Space Commission meeting. Had lots of input from all the factions of Parks and Open Space Department. I had weekly meetings set up with Parks, Fairgrounds, staff. I know that I had also connected with Julie Colvin, Noxious Weeds, confirming the direction that any available hours for the 2 Uray County seasonals should be spent within San Miguel County, as we have budgeted for that, been unable to hire for the 3rd seasonal. We keep getting questions about when the position is going to be re-advertised or if there's going to be any reorganization, and I do expect a small reorganization of the department. I want to wait until we've heard some final feedback from the Open Space Commission before I solidify those changes, and then I'll seek your input individually. And so I'm hopeful that we'll be at that place by the end of next week. Be looking at how we'll go about filling the vacancy in that role. Yesterday I attended the gondola subcommittee meeting with Commissioner Waring. So I'd like to give an update on that. Are you?
Sure.
Okay, fantastic.
Actually, go ahead. You've got the floor.
come back to you on that.
I can help out.
You call my bluff. I had a pair of tubes. Meeting with the welder today about the Placerville Cemetery sign. I've had extensive meetings on Galloping Goose Park. We've made some revisions. I've been meeting with the sculpture artist and coordinating with the state as well as with the town of Telluride. On that, so we are anticipating to see a start of the construction of Galloping Goose as early as next week. So excited to see that project come to fruition. Learned that the East End Connector Trail design had not been engineered or created as bid ready documents. So in stepping back from that, that project I might suggest be postponed until next year. When we can do the entirety of the project at once rather than the original plan, which was to phase it in 2 approaches, add in a temporary crosswalk. And working with Idorado and Ayers Associates on that project. More to come on that. Some safety improvements. We're still trying to get the truck like water tank, a structural assessment completed on that. I had given our contractor Nico Maynard the go ahead to complete the Lewis Mill window solidification to seal up those windows in the Lewis Mill. And unfortunately, Nico is now probably the most busy person, contractor in this county, given all of the mudslides and other unexpected impacts that we've had. Tomorrow I get to speak briefly to the emerging managers at the Colorado City and County Managers Association Conference in Montrose. And I think I've shared with most of you individually, had some recent family medical issues, not with me, but with my parents. And so it is likely I may have to fly to Michigan as early as not next week, but looking at next Saturday. And then I will be able to be available online and via phone, but they need my help and I have not gotten that call yet in life, so I feel like it's probably time to heed that call. Last, I think that's it for now. Pretty mild update today.
Thank you both. Commissioners, any questions? No. All right. We will move to the final item on our agenda because our attorney has informed me that she did not have anything to report. So Commissioner updates.
Do you want to get out here, and we could postpone these to next week? I had some interesting things to share, but nothing is timely.
How's your time, Commissioner Gleason?
I'm open, flexible. There is one thing I would like to run by all of you.
Why don't we start with you?
Okay. So I'm just gonna give a brief background. I think you're all maybe individually aware I've been pursuing this and working on this, but over the past several weeks, I've heard growing concerns from ranchers, specifically across the West End, about drought impacts, expanded prairie dog populations, worsening invasive weeds on fallow pastures, limited irrigation, and just degrading soil health. And around the same time, I started hearing these concerns. Steve Hale from Charbonneau Conservation District reached out about hosting a workshop to help producers navigate these conditions and provide some resources, information, and a venue to discuss all of these issues. And I felt it very timely and agreed to move forward to hold this workshop. So we have nailed down August 13th from 11 to 3 at the Livery in Norwood. And the event title will be called Drought on the West End: Resources, Tools, and a Path Forward for Producers. And we have solidified some really exciting and well-versed speakers from NRCS, FSA, which is the Farm Service Agency, the BLM, and CSU Extension, to address water scarcity and transitioning lands to drought-resistant native forage, as well as prairie dog mitigation. And the idea is to provide information, but then also opportunity for engagement, questions, thoughts, and ultimately we hope the outcome is going to be a working group coming from the West End producer community, working with these different agencies to develop ongoing plans and resources. We also will be presenting all of the information around the PEZ program, and I think that this will be a very captive audience, and an opportunity to spread the word around PEZ and soil health and regenerative ag, and really support our producer community in this way. I've reached out to Montrose County. I did as soon as I heard from Steve Hale, and Montrose County is interested in collaborating with San Miguel County on this event. I proposed cost share for this because there will be, the plan is to serve a lunch. And then there's a small cost associated with renting the livery. And so the Montrose County Commissioners are going to address the cost share at their upcoming meeting on Monday, the 27th. And they're going to get back with me as soon as possible, whether they're able to allocate an equal cost share of this. We budgeted it to be about $1,400 for all the costs. So what I wanted to bring to you all today is hopefully Montrose County will foot half the bill. That's what I proposed. So this would cost San Miguel County approximately $700, and this might be able to come out of the PEZ budget potentially, but we need to discuss how that could work. Or if that doesn't pencil out, where we could potentially find around $700, hopefully, if Montrose County is on board to cover the costs of this event.
Star, you want to come to the microphone?
I don't know what the PEZ budget is, and I don't know how much money is available.
So we can,
Okay, I was gonna say if that doesn't work, then I do have a $25,000 for climate actions in my budget as well, 25,000. So
Okay, great. And I mean, for obvious reasons, it'd be great for Montrose County to contribute financially, but I also just think the symbolism of that, you know, our county is coming together and really addressing this issue in lockstep is gonna really send a great message to our ag community. So I'm really excited about it. We're kind of pulling it together last minute, but it's coming together, and the speakers that have committed are really like legit in the industry and in the sciences, really gonna bring some good information.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Galina, you said you had a question for us. Was it regarding the funding?
it was regarding the funding.
Okay. Well, I suggest that we authorize Galina to fund the party out of either joint funds from both counties or from our coffers if need be, but let's have the party.
Okay, agreed.
Great, thanks.
And if you have anything that we could share by email or on social media to help get the word out, please pass that along.
I will, and Megan is gonna help me develop a flyer. We're actually gonna work on that this afternoon.
Oh, great.
Thanks to Megan for being willing to do that. Yeah, graphic design is not my forte. And then yes, the idea is to send the message out via social media, also Montrose County. I pitched cross promotion of this as well. And then Charbonneau Conservation District, CSU Extension. We're gonna send the word out.
We'll get it out there, yeah.
But I have been really encouraged at the initial interest in this. I've been having just side conversations that the county fair, different events on the West End recently, and with a lot of that ranching community, and there is a general interest in this, and I think the attendance will be really good. That's all I have because Star so well covered the compost meeting. And Mike covered the fair, which was really fun and well attended this year. If you ever want to come eat bacon at my house.
I was gonna say, what are you gonna do with your
We'll
swine?
we'll bring lettuce and tomatoes.
I mean, I'm gonna share it with some friends and family as well. You're not gonna eat the whole pig yourself.
Or you could just keep them going, see how much bigger it gets.
Right, well, he already went away.
Oh,
I know.
okay.
Commissioner Brown, I'm thinking you had something interesting you wanted to share with us.
You know, interesting but not urgent, so if you wanna get on the road, that's fine.
Go ahead,
Okay.
please.
Last week I attended the Collaborative Action for Immigrants meeting, which I do every month, and we are in the process of a strategic planning effort, and it looks like, trying to figure out like where do we fit in terms of support for the immigrant community here in San Miguel County. And I think that we've identified a need for some educational programs, beginning with kind of like financial literacy. There's already a driver's license education program going on that we may be able to help with, so that's kind of the direction that Kathy will likely be going, in addition to serving as kind of the collaborative kind of round table for all the organizations that serve the immigrant community. So it's really rewarding to see the organization, continue to develop and find its footing. Last Thursday, I attended the Behavioral Health Collaborative meeting, which is a bi-monthly meeting. Folks mentioned that the Behavioral Health Solutions Panel grant applications, that annual application for access to the county's mill levy funding for behavioral health, will open, the grant applications open on August 3rd and run into September. So if people have interest in that will happen soon. Cole Cooper, who is our behavioral health projects lead, has been with us for a few months now, made just kind of a general update on what he's been up to. One of the things, my impression of him is he's really creative, and we love this about so many of our staff, at finding grant money for programming. And one of the things he identified as a need and an opportunity is to set up these free care boxes on both ends of the county, meaning East End and Norwood, that would provide sort of free personal care products like single-use diapers and wipes, as well as Narcan and what's it called, fentanyl test strips and condoms. So just kind of almost like a little mini drugstore for people in need, and that will be positioned. They'll be positioned at each of the libraries, and they're well funded. And he's having a nice sort of kiosk built for each of them. Just a really, I think, terrific public service.
And that's grant funded
All grant funded.
in perpetuity.
That I don't recall, but I know it will pay for the station, if you will, or the kiosk, and the supplies, and it seemed like there wasn't like a concern about running out of money. So, I mean, I don't think any grant is in perpetuity, but
Danny.
it's something to, take advantage of while it's there. So, yeah. Let's see, he's working on continuing, because, his primary kind of reason for being was to coordinate efforts across the county in terms of behavioral health, but specifically implementation of the behavioral health strategic plan. So he's had a lot of check-ins with all the local organizations that have been identified and did participate, identified as having responsibilities in there. And he has decided that we need to kind of do a refresh of the plan, because it's a year old and he's learned so much from all these meetings. So there's going to be a group of stakeholders involved in just kind of updating that and figuring out, kind of really making assignments and getting it going. Let's see. This is an interesting update provided by Sheriff Koval and Lisa Sabri from San Miguel Resource Center. Our county is one of the first to soon adopt what's called a lethality assessment protocol. And it helps first responders and other sort of advocates to ascertain the risk level of a situation that they may be called to, particularly like a DV, domestic violence situation. And so right now, it's kind of up to the deputy or whoever is attending to kind of decide for themselves what the risk level is and what future intervention might be needed. But this is a very sort of well-researched protocol that which is basically a series of questions that they can ask of the possible alleged victim to ascertain kind of the risk load. And Dan is really excited about it because it takes takes a lot of the guesswork out of what kind of follow-up is required or needed for a situation rather than trying to figure out, subjectively, whether it's a high level of risk for a potential legal incident. So they were really excited about that. And as I said, the San Miguel County Sheriff's Office is adopting that well before it is required by the state, which is next summer. San Miguel Resource Center also discussed their current situation, and I attended their fundraiser last night too, where the same information was shared, that they've had hundreds of thousands of dollars in federal and state funding cut at the same time that their caseloads are up this year 63%. So they are really working hard to try to, find their balance, if you will, with both of those factors. And we talked about why the caseloads might be up so much, and Lisa's, kind of sense is that this is a continued repercussions of the winter mountain closure and the financial stress that our community was under and continues to be under that hasn't really gone away. And often when there is financial stress, people will sort of act out in violent ways at home. And so she thinks that could be part of why the caseloads are up. And then we also discussed too that, SMRC is just becoming ever more trusted, and awareness is really growing, continuing to grow. I mean, it's been there forever, but I think that also speaks to the level of service and outreach that they're providing. Let's see. The other thing we discussed at the Behavioral Health Collaborative was just kind of reviewing again the crisis intervention program and hearing from some of the first responders who haven't used them, and again, just more conversation about how well that's going. We had a real TRAA Airport Authority meeting last week, and the big news from there is that I don't know if you all remember, there was a big project on the south side last summer where they laid out I guess it's a ramp or some, a place for planes to be tied down or located, stored, in preparation for eventually building hangars over there. So it's useful now, but eventually too, it'll be part of that South Hangar Development Project. And there were some remaining funds from the grants that we got. I think there were 3 grants used for that, plus a little bit of local match. And they're going to be able to use that to complete the tunnel road. And as you may recall, the tunnel road is meant to be the way to access the south side of the airport across from the, under or around the tunnel of the, what's it called? Landing strip, I guess that's what the runway. So this is, the idea is that it will take some pressure off the South Quarry Road. So that's fantastic that that's going to be completed this year, like this before the snow flies. We had a second special meeting work session yesterday with a number of the board members and the neighbors who continue to desire a more formal agreement between the airport and the neighbors about not using the South Quarry Road in the future, and also communication issues and all that. It was very constructive. I attended a meeting to continue talking about the behavioral health hub, which is that potential sort of storefront physical presence for mental health service access. And we had spoken earlier, we being Grace and I, with the Regional Medical Center about potentially being located at their new facility. That's in flux because it now appears that the primary care services will remain in town and only emergency department will be out at Society Turn. Anyway, we're continuing those conversations, and we brought into those conversations both Paragon Behavioral Health and Tri-County, because they all have current or potential office needs. So we're kind of trying to figure out the best solution for all of these behavioral health services and where they might be physically located. I attended a meeting of the regional COAD, which is, goodness, community. I can't remember what it stands for, but basically it is an organization pulled together by our Emergency Management Office and Thyroid Foundation to organize non-governmental emergency support during a crisis or disaster. And it actually was utilized during the Gold Mountain fire. It wasn't even quite ready, but it had been in development. So there are so many organizations in our region involved with this COAD. I was really kind of impressed and also touched at how many organizations are willing to participate. We had all of the local news organizations, the towns, the counties, SMART, the libraries, Rotary, Elks, Med Center, Paragon, all the food banks, just all sorts of Thyroid Foundation organizations present to try to organize themselves to be able to respond to a disaster. And so again, that is just still the systems are being worked out. And I think that what we talked most about was sort of communication within the COAD during a disaster, and then sort of how to further kind of organize within the COAD. So this is something that Shannon Armstrong has really worked hard on together with April Montgomery at the foundation. And as we said, they got kind of a trial by fire experience in Uray, which I think went fine, but they learned so much in a good way to develop it further. Wanted to mention, obviously tomorrow we have a SMART meeting, which I and Commissioner Gleason will attend. And then on Friday, for a great part of the day, is a CCI issues discussion. So it's kind of the same thing we went through today with CCAT, where proposals are met. We don't have to vote on it as far as I know. They haven't, I'm sure we don't, because they haven't sent anything around. But I'll be coming back to you guys again when those proposals are more fleshed out to get your feedback. Yeah, that's that.
That's great.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Promised update on the most recent gondola subcommittee meeting, which was yesterday. And Mike and I were in attendance. The bulk of the discussion focused on a economic fiscal impact analysis of the gondola and how it would affect our region if it were no longer around. And the best estimate is 20% reduction in our local economy. And so the group discussed what that means in real terms, and the word that kept coming out was kind of a forever recession. So we want to accumulate information and data to share with the community based on those kind of real life analysis and statistics, and try to continue to explain why a new gondola may be the only or the best idea moving forward. In other gondola subcommittee news, our chair, Harvey Morganson, thank you, made a suggestion to reduce the size of the committee because the focus is becoming increasingly technical on design and substations and cable lengths and so forth. And that will be presented to the SMART board tomorrow. And you all can listen in and decide if that's something that's acceptable. Thank you all.
All right.
All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, meeting adjourned at 1:07. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Lance. Lance, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, ma'am.
Please enough parking spots